across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's great, as always, to have you join us. Lots to talk about today. If you miss any of the show, don't forget my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, is available to catch up everything on. You can hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, Donald Trump has arrived in Britain for his second state visit. Everyone's going on about it. It's historic. When in my lifetime has there been a president who had two different terms in office with someone else in between? I mean, that's why he's got a second state visit. I mean, for goodness sake, can we stop using the word historic about it? Just because something happens for the first time doesn't mean it's historic. I mean, I've put my pen down here first. It's historic. Can we all get over that? It's a major event. It's a major state visit, and absolutely we should be rolling out the red carpet for the leader of the leader of the free world, our biggest military, security and economic ally. Absolutely. Now, the president says he loves the UK. He looks forward to meeting King Charles. He describes him as his long-time friend, and he will be doing that in a matter of hours this morning after the US president and the First Lady Melania arrived to a guard of honour, as well as the Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, choking on her words, but as Mike Graham was pointing out, sort of just shaking hands like she was a stalker is a fair description. But other issues are going on in the world that just mind-blowing. Labour's one-in, one-out policy that we talked about so much over recent weeks and so much the last couple of days plunged into chaos once again after the High Court blocked the government from sending a small boat migrant back to France because he claimed he would be destitute if sent back there. The 25-year-old Eritrean man, who can't be named for legal reasons, obviously, was due to be on a flight to France this morning. We've already had a whole bunch of flights go out with no one on. More journalists have gone to France and been deported back than we've actually seen channel migrants. But here's the kicker, guys. On Saturday, the first return person, the one in as opposed to the one out, is going to arrive from France. Whether we've kicked anyone out or not. Can anyone see the flaw in this deal? I wonder. Genuinely, you've just got... I mean, they're just taking the mick out of us now. It's as simple as that. We're going to be talking more about that. Plus, the Prime Minister under increasing political pressure, particularly from his Labour backbenchers, to raise Israel's offensive in Gaza with Donald Trump during his state visit after a UN Commission report yesterday laughably claimed that genocide was taking place. By the way, that report barely mentioned Hamas, doesn't actually think there are tunnels, and didn't mention anything about the Gazan people being used as a human shield. So not entirely sure that's a genocide report that's worth reading. But there we are. So much to talk about today, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of the stories. I'd like to hear your thoughts on of course, the one-in and one-out policy that is... we all laughed about it being even one out, didn't we? They can't even get one out. 31,000 people have arrived this year already. We can't even get one out. This is a joke, and it's a sick joke. It's absolutely risible what is going on. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on Trump's visit. Should we be rolling out the red carpet or not? And in particular, after the London Mayor Sadiq Khan has claimed that the US president has, in his words, in an article for, guess where? Yeah, The Guardian, of course, has perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world. That's what the London Mayor, Labour's Sadiq Khan, has to say about Donald Trump's arrival today. What's your reaction to that? An awful lot of Labour politicians, whether it was David Lammy, the Deputy Prime Minister now, and the former Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper, the current Foreign Secretary, and many others, have all been very critical of Donald Trump. Very rude and rather childishly insulting about him. Some of their criticisms, I think, are valid. Yeah, I think he is a misogynist. I think he has behaved in a horrific way, certainly with women and with many other people. But what's your reaction to him writing that article today as we're trying to basically, we're trying to cozy up with the guy who's going to make the decisions on tariffs and whether or not he's going to help protect Europe in the event of the Ukraine war spreading. I mean, yeah, maybe that would be a good idea, right? I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. But you knew that bit already. You'll also know it's Wednesday, and therefore former Conservative Government Advisor Claire Pearce, who joins us in the studio. A very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where do we start?
It's never ending.
Where do we start? We're going to start with Donald Trump, because that is the big event, and we are going to be seeing footage of him. I think, in about just under 2 hours, Donald Trump is going to be greeted with his wife at Windsor Castle by William and Kate. They're going to they're going to meet the King and Queen. Queen unwell for the funeral yesterday, but we understand about again. And then about 50 minutes later, they're going to take part in a carriage procession through the estate to the castle, ceremonial welcome, a guard of honour. I mean, all this is all the stuff that Donald Trump desperately wants. And it's one of the things that we can do with our soft power, because we've got the royal family. That's the point of having a royal family, to do this stuff. Do you think that we should be rolling out the red carpet? Do you think that people like Sadiq Khan and others who criticise, saying we shouldn't be rolling out the red carpet, and talk about Donald Trump being a divisive figure who, is an autocrat and stirring up far-right politics?
Well, of course we should be rolling out the red carpet. He is the leader of the free world. You have to do these things. You have to be able to work with your allies. You have to look at what this is going to do for the United Kingdom. You need to have that relationship with people that you may not get on with, but tough luck, suck it up, get on with it. And Sadiq Khan, I mean, does anybody really pay any attention to the words he's saying?
I'm not sure even Mrs. Khan does, to be honest with you.
Do you think she just sort of shuts him in the spare room and sort of says,
I've got to be honest, I bet Sadiq, mate, give it a rest. Give it a rest. What do you want for dinner? I mean,
this is the man who divides more of London than Donald Trump divides the rest of the world.
Yeah, this is a man who can't even do New Year's Eve fireworks without putting politics into it.
Exactly.
And divisive politics as well. I mean, genuinely, it's an absolute joke. He really is. And again, constantly stirring up division between... I mean, again, anyone who's obsessed with race and religion and all of that, of course he divides people. It's absurd. We should be rolling out the red carpet. What do you make of things like 4 people have been arrested over images of well-known newspaper images of Donald Trump with Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew with Jeffrey Epstein, and other figures being projected onto Windsor Castle? I mean, we're having a little bit of a smile there, because this is a bizarre thing. In the week that Jeffrey Epstein is a huge topic of conversation because of Peter Mandelson, you're going to have 3 men in the news this week in England, in Britain. You've got Donald Trump, who was a good friend with Jeffrey Epstein, although, to be fair, I mean, I think it's quite clear he really did. Yeah. I think they'd not been friends for a long time since he was... I think he hasn't stayed friends with him since he was actually arrested on those child prostitution trafficking charges. So he's probably the cleanest on this one, weirdly. You've got Keir Starmer, who thought it was completely appropriate to appoint Peter Mandelson, who's best buddies with Jeffrey Epstein long after he was convicted in 2009 and pleaded guilty. Remember, he pleaded guilty to these child prostitution charges. I mean, apparently he doesn't seem to think it's an issue. I mean, I think the rest of us do. But Keir Starmer's judgment massively called into question in that 3-hour Commons debate yesterday. David Davis, absolutely brilliant. And I thought actually Stephen Flynn, absolutely brilliant, the SNP leader in Westminster, talking about, again, you're talking about a man who it's known in the court documents, got a 14-year-old to masturbate him. I mean, but he thought it was absolutely fine to put someone who thought he was his big mate and had no issue with that. I mean, that's the reality. And then you've got the king, who, his younger brother, Prince Andrew, paid 12 million quid to one of the alleged victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but apparently never met her. But was definitely big mates and stayed at his house and again saw him, stayed at his house for 4 days after the conviction. 3 very powerful, very well-known men who've all got links to a dead paedophile billionaire.
I think it was inevitable that you were going to have some kind of message sent across. You only have to look whenever there's something going on in Westminster and you get images projected onto the side of Big Ben. You're always going to have that at Windsor. It does bring in the question as to how good the security is.
Every time.
Because they would have to be relatively close to set that up in order for that image to be projected.
I'm wondering what they were arrested for, actually.
It's a little bit vague as to what they've been arrested for. I think the police are saying, yes, no, we've dealt with them and everything is fine. just shows the shambles around Windsor at the moment for the policing aspect.
Yeah. I mean, if someone's able to
that's
get
a
close enough to do that. But I suppose out the outside is a public street. I mean, got footage right now of a load of people. You know, there's royal reporters who stand around thinking they're in the royal family. Oh, yes. Oh, you know, my mate Kate. Yeah, mate, you never even met her. Let's all stop that nonsense. No. But I mean, you know, it's going to be difficult. And in terms of issues that Keir Starmer's being asked to raise, you know, we've got you know, Gaza and Israel, and there's a lot of political pressure on Keir Starmer because from the left, and he's under a lot of pressure right now over Manderson, over his judgment on many things. We've got the budget coming up. Report today from the Office of Budget Responsibility saying, you know, latest figures are terrible. We've got 3.8% inflation. Our Prime Minister is in a very, very, very tricky position right now. And we're told that Donald Trump's going to go easy on him because apparently he likes him.
I mean, I don't believe that to be true for a second.
He knows how to do that.
No, I don't think he does. But I think Keir Starmer needs to appease his own backbenchers, so he's going to have to bring up Israel and Gaza. But also for the good of the nation, he needs to look at the steel tariffs. He needs to look at what he's given away in order to get the tech deals.
Well, there's this £30 billion tech deal. Now, here's the thing: it involves AI and goodness knows what else. But we've got a load of other businesses leading. We have some AI involves huge amounts of electricity. I mean, just huge amounts of energy, which is very, very expensive in this country. And for business, it's 4 times more expensive here than it is in the US. Why are they? With all due respect, why are they setting up here? We've got some brilliant, you know, scientists and tech people. I get that, but at the end of the day, you're looking at the bottom line, right? Why would you do it here rather than even in France? You know, down, you know, what's going on there when other companies are saying we're leaving Britain because it's too expensive to manufacture anything and for energy, and the regulatory, you know, and the tax is too high.
It is. I mean, you've got the digital services tax, which is what the industry is looking at to say, please, can you not levy that upon us? And
it's been denied this morning, but that was.
And these things are always denied, aren't they?
Until
we can never take it off the table until we see the budget.
We weren't paying Mauritius for the Chagos Islands, so
of course
that's
not.
all denied,
no, that's all above board and fine, isn't it? But you do wonder what's being offered in return, and I think there's a lot of artists and publishers who are particularly concerned that their works are going to be essentially given for free in order for AI to start learning and recreating.
Whereas if we use an image on here, we have to pay for it.
Absolutely,
that's how people make money.
So.
Yeah.
And rightly so. And there's a lot of authors who are particularly worried that their words are just going to go out there with absolutely no recognition, no payment.
And again, that's how they earn a living. It really it is extraordinary, isn't it? Let's also talk about the small matter of like Donald Trump finding it remarkably easy to remove people from illegal migrants from America and closing the border. Really, really simple. It's a land border. It's an epically long land border, not a sea border, but he's been able to close it. He's also been able to deport, I mean, you know, tens of thousands of people. We, with a one-in, one-out deal with France, can't even get one out, but apparently on Saturday we are going to have one in, someone who's been chosen by France to come here, apparently, you know, someone who's legitimate who can then bring all of their entire extended family. But this is the most extraordinary story. As I tweeted last night, I think they're just taking, I couldn't use the word on air, let's go with taking the mickey, shall we? But you all know they're extracting the urine from us at this point, let's be honest. But we've got an Eritrean man, he's 25 years old, not allowed to know his name. No, of course we're not, just paying for him. He arrived here early last month. He claimed that he and his mother had travelled to Ethiopia from Eritrea when he was a young child. He was then trafficked, he says, from there to Libya in 2023. And his barrister, who used to be the chair of the human rights group Liberty, there you go, that's all you need to know, says that basically he then made his way via Italy to France, and he arrived in Britain after his mum had paid £1,000 to people smugglers for his trip on August the 12th. The next day, he had an asylum screening interview with the Home Office. He was asked if he'd been exploited, and he replied no. I mean, bear in mind, there would be translators. We know that, because we get the bill as taxpayers. A few days later, after obviously getting legal advice from one of these many charities who think it's their job to keep as many random young men from other countries in our country who have arrived here illegally, he then lodged a claim under British modern slavery laws, alleging he'd been exploited in Libya. So it wasn't just the fact that he said that his lawyer said, if he was sent to France, that he would be subject to, quote, inhuman and degrading conditions in breach of Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, because he would face destitution because the French government isn't going to give them a 4-star hotel or a flat and give them money to live on. But basically, there's a Strasbourg case from 2020 which ordered the French government to pay compensation to 5 asylum seekers after they were denied support and forced to sleep rough. So that's going to be the latest thing that's going to be used by basically, unless you're going to get the 4-star treatment in France, you get to stay here because you'd be destitute in France. Yeah, I mean, I can't even. There aren't words to describe how mad this is.
And especially when you look further into this story and you see that there were at least 2 different charities in France who had offered accommodation and assistance. So he would have been living just outside the centre of Paris in accommodation. He would have had people around to offer food and clothing and things like that. So he wouldn't have been destitute.
Yeah.
I think
and even if he was, it's not my problem.
Well, and I think this is what people are going to look at. I mean, you'll do a piece, I'm sure, about the economy at some point, because that is really tanking in the United Kingdom. So people are going to say, well, hang on a minute, we're pretty much destitute, so why are we worried about this chap?
Yeah.
But I think it's just always destined to fail when the government say we're going to deport people, we're going to do it on these days, every single day they're going to send somebody. It's never going to happen.
They were crazy to announce it in advance of these saying these flights. And again, we had all these journalists, and well, good luck with that. And the journalists were there, and then they've left. I mean, that sounds, we've got 6 journalists to France and no migrants. The reality is, it's much harder than the Labour Party claimed. They thought they were going to come in, and we've seen this in every area of government. We're just going to, if we're in charge, the civil servants will be on our side. The juries are incompetent. We just go, no, you can't get anything done in this country anymore because of European Commission. European Convention of Human Rights, the lawyers, the legal system, the regulatory. You can't get anything. You can't build anything. No. You can't report anybody. You can't stop anyone coming in. You can't do. You can't change anything in any of the public sector, failing organisations because of the unions. You can't do anything. They're learning to their cost. Governing is a little bit harder than they thought. Yeah. And you just be nicey and being the good people doesn't actually make any difference. I mean, you're going to have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. You're going to have to leave the Refugee Convention, and you're going to have to basically have a massive sift out of a huge number of lefty lawyers and judges. And I'm sorry, these people are not representing our country.
They're not, and these are the lefty lawyers that Sir Keir Starmer is part of. He is part of that problem. So what's he going to do about it? He's going to sort of stand there and say, oh, no, it's all fine, don't worry about it. When it was Tony Blair that set up with the Human Rights Act, which enshrined everything into British law. This is why we're in this problem now. Yeah. So it goes back all that time, and no one's looking at how you can unpick it.
Exactly. There were loads of things we couldn't do because we were still in the EU, right? So we left the EU. I mean, let's have a referendum on this one, or should we not even bother? Because it would be like,
pay no attention.
70-80% in favour of leaving. And I do not understand why these other countries like Germany are able to deport people, but we're not. I just find it absolutely. But it's the fact that the French, under this deal, oh my God, this government is so incompetent. Even if we can't deport someone, the French still get to send someone over.
I think that we should turn that round and send it straight back. Why should we? Why should we? This is part of the deal. So who wrote the deal up in the first place? Because I can see that France are going to send way more people in our direction than we do in theirs.
Do you think?
Should we have a little bet on that one?
I mean, genuinely, I can't even... Every morning I wake up to these stories and I'm just... But this is a joke now. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke. I'm really hoping, Starmer's going to be giving it the big I am on Mr. Moral on Israel and Gaza, and recognising a Palestinian state which under no basis can be recognised in any meaningful way. Stupid claims, nonsense claims about genocide in Gaza and the like. And he's going to be trying to lecture in his lawyery way Donald Trump. Donald Trump should turn around and say, you can't even control your own borders. Zip it, mate. And you'd be quite right to do that. 10 to 21 is the time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all those stories. Lots more I want to talk about. Charlie Kirk appearing in... Charlie Kirk star suspect Tyler Robinson appearing in court for the first time, being charged with numerous offences, including the murder, of course, of Charlie Kirk. Also want to be talking more about what's going on in Gaza. Is it a genocide or not? And, of course, Lucy Powell, one of the front-runners for the Labour deputy leadership. Is she a stalking horse for Andy Burnham? That's the question. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense.
President Trump has got one itinerary. Melania has got another itinerary. She's going to be meeting with Princess Catherine. She's going to be doing her own thing, but neither of them, as far as I understand, Ian, are going to be coming into London. I think that's probably because we certainly know there is no close friendship between President Trump and Sadiq Khan. And we know Sadiq Khan, the last time, 2018, allowed many sort of anti-Trump protesters to float a big blimp in his image, to cause all sorts of chaos.
They were polite. We often bumped into each other. And do you know what? People were saying, sorry, you go first. I've never seen so many polite people at a rally, contrary to where I policed Notting Hill, both as a uniformed officer and as a detective. I can tell you now, I would much prefer to have been at the United Kingdom rally on Saturday, where I saw lovely people, non-violent, non-aggressive, than when I actually policed Notting Hill Carnival.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:25 is the time. Lots of calls and messages coming in, particularly about Donald Trump and his state visit to the UK. And, of course, the London Mayor, Sadiq Khan, having to put his tuppence for thing because, no one's talking about me. I want to talk about me. So he's claimed in an article in, where else? The Guardian, that the US president has perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world. Your reaction to that? James says Khan gets paid £170,000 a year to oversee the decline of London, so maybe he should focus on that instead of Trump. Oh yeah, I mean he makes a statement about every major foreign affairs event or world event. Like, could you I don't know, could you just get the stabbers off the tube? Would that be too much to ask, Sadiq? Would that be too much to ask? Bobby says Khan needs to wind his neck in. Timothy says our capital is in turmoil. Khan needs to go. Trump would be a better mayor. Oh, do you know what? No, the thing is, he would. Andrew says Sadiq is one of the most annoying leaders. He has zero credibility and causes chaos. So for him to say that about Trump proves we need Trump here. Sadly, the better of two evils is still evil, but one would make a stand and do something right. Michael says, meanwhile, Khan is being exposed for covering up grooming gangs in the capital. Sadiq refuses to face the reality of the situation in his own city. And this is true. There's been some big question marks. I've been saying for a long time, like, why are there grooming gangs in every single city around the country, but apparently nothing in London? He's the Police and Crime Commissioner for London as well. I mean, 10 million people. You're telling me there are no girls being groomed. People are waking up to the fact that Khan said there wasn't an issue of grooming gangs in London, says Jane. And Rachel says, unless Khan can sort out issues that are under his remit in London before commenting on things that are outside of his pay grade. Sorry, useless Khan, she says. A lot of it along that theme. Should we be rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump? Well, let's talk to David. He's on the line. He's given us a call on 0344 499 1000 from Sheffield and wants to have his say. Good morning to you, David.
Yeah, well, it's more about state politicians in this country. I mean, we're going on about Steer Karma and how bad he is, but we've got another politician who I believe was in charge of the post office when innocent people were getting sent to jail. Am I correct in assuming that?
Who?
The Liberal leader.
Davey? No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't in charge of the post office. He was the minister responsibility for the post office.
Right, yeah, well,
but it was going on for years. He was one of the many ministers.
Yeah, but
I hold no candle for Ed Davey.
But on Gaza, how can he have such a principled stand on Gaza? I'm not going to see Trump and everything else like that.
Yeah.
When he had the power to intervene in them cases, and he did nothing.
Well, again, my understanding and from what he said and what it was that actually he got told there's loads of bad things going on. He talked to his officials. They got reassurance that it wasn't happening. Again, he should have. He says now he should have looked into it more. But
yeah, but that's exactly what Steer Karma's saying. I should have looked into it more. Do you not see the correlation between the politicians ignoring things, and then when it comes out, then they're saying, I should have looked into it.
Yeah, no, that's true.
He's saying his civil servants told him that there was nothing to worry about, so he did nothing about it.
Yeah.
But now he thinks he should have done. Where have we heard that sentence before, this week or last week?
Oh, you make a very fair point. Can I ask you this, Billy? Do you think that we should be rolling the red carpet out for Trump?
Definitely.
Tell us why.
Absolutely, definitely. And I'm going to tell you why. Right, this is a romantic vision of America. But if you go to France and you visit that Omar beach and you look at that graveyard and you look at the 10,000 American bodies what's buried there, right? They made the ultimate sacrifice to save Western civilization. And that's it. So for me, America is America. It saved Europe. So we should roll that carpet to every president, no matter what.
Because of that. Well, then France should be looking after us a bit better. Can I just say, one of the things I know the Americans were absolutely crucial in helping us in World War II. Can we please remember that Churchill was begging the Americans to join the war to help fight Nazism, and they refused and refused and refused. Well, the president refused and refused and refused until Pearl Harbor and the Japanese declared war on America, and then randomly so did Hitler, and then he came to fight. The Americans didn't come to our aid. They did. I'm sorry. We need to be firm on that.
That's slightly wrong, because the Americans then were in a stage of isolation.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, exactly. What I'm saying, when we were begging them, when we were on our knees and begging them, they didn't come to us. It was only after Hitler declared war on America that I'm really glad, and I'm very grateful to all those soldiers who did fight from America and helped save us. But that's historical fact there. David, I so appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Covered a lot of ground there. Laura Jane is on the line. She's in Hampshire. Laura Jane, you want to talk about this laughable one in, one out deal, don't you?
Yes, but I would just like to say something about the coming into the war. We did send over Churchill's daughter-in-law to schmooze, and it's well-known fact. And the only reason why I know that is because, it's a member of my family that his wife was. Churchill's wife was, and so I know the backstory to this. And he sent her on her knees pretty much, although she was very good at schmoozing and doing the things that needed, and that helped change the mind. I know that Pearl Harbor obviously did the clincher, but there was a lot going on that would never have come out. Anyway, very interesting background.
I love that. History Today with JHB and Laura Jane. Laura Jane, what do you want to say about this migration policy?
Battle of Waterloo all over again. They're dying to get their own back on us, the French, and they're just laughing at us, and it's embarrassing. Because
wait a minute, it's not the French's fault that it's not the Frenchies. It's not Macron's fault that we've got such mad human rights lawyers.
They are enjoying it. I'm saying they are enjoying it because honestly, they do have a sort of a laughing. They're just laughing at us, and the opinion that everyone is going on and on about. Oh my goodness, Starmer's doing this again. He's never going to deport anyone. He is a human rights lawyer. End of. And it's just...
No, hold on a minute. They definitely wanted to. They've got deporting to a safe country, so it's not the Rwanda, it's not back to Eritrea or Afghanistan. He knows politically this is absolutely vital. He gets people across the channel. He doesn't realise that this isn't the deal that's going to make the British people happy. This is a personal and political disaster for him.
I hate to disagree with you. Yes, it is a disaster for him, but he is not going to do it. And it's not in his nature to do this. He's a lawyer, and he's what's more a human rights lawyer. He's just doing this or saying this to keep us all happy because he thinks we're dimbos.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure even he realises when no one actually gets deported, he's going to look like a dimbo himself. Laura Jane, thank you so much for your call. Claire Pearsall, I mean, realistically, politically, this is going to be a disaster for Starmer.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
Among the many. I mean, it's difficult
to pick which one of the week you want. But no, this one's going to be there around his neck until he is deposed as Prime Minister. And
do you think that is going to happen?
Yeah, I don't see him lasting. I think probably May next year, local elections.
Scottish elections, Welsh elections particularly for reform win of the Welsh government.
The polling on that is appalling for Labour. Yeah. So I think that he'll limp on until then. But this is going to be one of those things that he is not forgotten over because he has made such a big thing about they're going to smash the gangs and get everybody out and then can't even send somebody back to Paris. It's not that far. It really isn't.
It's the fact they paid £650 a ticket that's really bothers me. That's my money. 10:33 is at the time. Up next, we're going to talk to James Ball. He's political editor of New World. Very much in favour of keeping every migrant we possibly can in this. Invite them all in. Come on in, the water's lovely. I'd love to know what he thinks about this. And should we be rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump? We'll talk to him about that next. Keep your calls coming in, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:36 is the time. Don't forget Donald Trump will be covering his state visit, of course, today. No public events. I wonder why. Pretty much all in Windsor. He's going to be flying out from Winfield House, the home of the US ambassador. It's in Regent's Park in central London. Be flying there from there to 11:55 this morning, greeting at Windsor Castle with William and Kate before they're meeting the King and Queen. And I knew when you arrived last night, by the way, because the helicopters from Stansted to Regent's Park flew over my house. Very, very noisy helicopters, those. What are they? Not Air Force One, Marine One, aren't they? Marine One too. But anyway, that was. We'll be covering that later on as and when that happens. I think the weather is improving in Windsor, so they'll be a bit happier than that. One thing you can't control is, of course, the weather. But should we be rolling the red carpet out for Donald Trump? Well, let's talk to James Paul. He's political editor of the New World. Used to be the New European, but then they discovered there was somewhere else outside of Europe. Very excitingly. Very good morning to you, James.
Good morning, Julia.
Appreciate you joining us. So red carpet's being rolled out, quite a lot on the left not happy. Sadiq Khan had to pipe up, the London mayor. He says that, we shouldn't really be taking, lectures from Donald Trump on anything, and perhaps we need to tell him some home truths. He says, because the US president has, in his words, perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world. What do you say to that?
I'm saying here to a lot of it. I think Sadiq Khan sort of echoes what a lot of Labour voters, certainly a lot of Labour members and MPs think. And, I'm very glad that people are going out and protesting. Donald Trump's extraordinarily unpopular here, but it's the government's job to suck it up and talk to people they don't like and try and get Britain a good deal. And Trump loves pomp, Trump loves ceremony. We're good at pomp and ceremony. It doesn't cost us very much, and we might get good deals for British business. We might get the worst of the tariffs off. I think the government's doing the right thing, even if I don't personally like it very much.
So that's part of the deal of being grown up and being in politics. You have to do these things. And yet, last time he came, when Labour were in opposition, whether it was Sadiq Khan, there was like a war of words texting battle while the president was on the tarmac, for goodness sake. After he arrived, there was the big baby, baby in a nappy blimp that he gave permission to in Parliament Square. Pretty much every member of the front bench, whether it's David Lammy, former Foreign Secretary, now Deputy Prime Minister, laughably, Yvette Cooper, now Foreign Secretary, had to greet him. They have been incredibly rude about the president. Now, I may agree with some of their criticisms about Donald Trump in terms of misogyny and things like that. However, if you're in frontline politics, if you're a grown-up, you don't do that, do you?
It's politics, isn't it? Every politician has met another world leader they've said something dreadful about, and they're all tremendously good at pretending it never happened. I sort of shrug it off largely. I think Trump doesn't pay enough attention to Britain to care too much.
You have no idea who this funny little elf-like creature was who greeted him at the bottom of the steps. He's got no idea who she is.
There's no way he'll remember Yvette Cooper's name after this week, is there? Lammy got on with J.D. Vance. I've no idea if Trump will notice he's gone. But he likes being sucked up to. He likes a big castle. He likes the royals. This will work, and it won't matter that they said dodgy things about him in the past, as long as they're saying nice things about him
as long as he gets the biggest fly past, the biggest number of troops, the biggest, everything's going to be a first. They know what they're doing here. In terms of trade deals, what we get, again, there's a big question marks about that £30 billion deal with US tech giants, because they've been arguing about, they don't want a lot of the new regulatory rules that the UK wants to bring in. Trump and J.D. Vance have argued about that. But also, a lot of people wondering, why on earth would big AI, industry come and set up in the UK when we've got 4 times the energy prices of America?
We've got really good workforce. We are not as insane and regulatory on big tech as some of Europe. I can be pro-Europe and still say that they're dreadful at this.
There's well done, James.
No European tech giants.
Well done. No, I'm really proud of you for that.
Thanks, Julie. It means a lot.
Europe isn't El Dorado. Shocker from James Ball.
We have a skilled tech workforce. We have, London is still a good city to do business in. There's good access to capital. Energy cost is a big factor. I genuinely worry about our grid. We can barely power ourselves, but we've got a lot of advantages that mean that expensive energy is a problem, but not an insurmountable one.
Okay, very interesting. Well, here's a problem, perhaps an insurmountable one, is European Convention on Human Rights and our incredibly activist lawyers and judges that we've got that are preventing pretty much any deportation of this country from channel migrants. The Prime Minister and the then Home Secretary Yvette Cooper had hailed their one-in, one-out deal with France earlier in the summer. We were told it was all imminent, and then we found out on Sunday this was the week those deportation flights. Someone who had arrived, been detained back in early August, would be deported to France. It was going to happen on all flights all day, every day this week. They'd be deported on Air France flights from Heathrow to Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, and then people would start coming back from France. We've had 2 planes that people have been booked on. There was a 9 o'clock one this morning. No one went out on that one either. No one's gone out other than a load of journalists, including Thomas Godfrey from The Sun, who was on one of the planes at great expense. And last night we discovered that an Eritrean man, a 25-year-old whose mum had paid £1,000 to smugglers to bring him here, that he has been allowed to stay based on 2 claims. One, he would be destitute in France if he arrived there because he wasn't going to get a 4-star hotel. But also he has claimed, although having denied he'd been exploited in his first interview, after the lefty lawyers had got involved, he now says that he was human trafficked, and therefore that would mean he couldn't be deported. And the High Court has put a temporary block on that deportation. Are we ever going to be able to send anyone who arrives on a Channel boat back to any country ever?
I do sometimes think the government's deliberately making my job hard. I'll be honest. It's... I want to make the case that we can actually get effective deportations without leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. I think the government makes it very hard to do that, and I do think there is an argument that some of the courts overinterpret this stuff in ways that look almost activist sometimes.
I mean, you're being very careful there. They completely and utterly apply their own thing, their own made-up version of the articles in the Human Rights Convention, and they just make it up as they go along.
So we do deport people who arrive on small boats all the time, even when they make claims of modern slavery, when they make all of this. Yeah, we've got a lot better at returns, particularly to Albania, when you look at some other countries.
Yeah, but Albania, that's a simple, easy one. There's no war in Albania. People aren't being persecuted in Albania. We did a deal with the Albanian government.
There's no war in France yet, but we seem to have struggled with that one.
Who knows? But that's it. But France isn't the country these people initially hail from. But that's the whole point of this deal. It's like, oh, OK, well, other than the fact that we don't want one in as well as one out. But on Saturday, we understand that the first flight for someone who was a migrant in France who's applied to come here on this exchange trip, this lovely little exchange visit, they're going to arrive, whether we've deported anyone or not. I mean, that's taking the mick out of the British people, isn't it?
It is really, really bad politics. I mean, the thing... You would have thought if you have done a deal that a lot of people already thought was a day late and $1 short, you know, I can see the merits of this one in, one out. I can see why they think it might help at least a little bit, but it was not a good sale. It doesn't sound like it's useful. And so botching the execution feels dreadful. Getting people to look at it and go, we're going to do the first ones this week when you aren't sure it's there. I don't know why they didn't try and do this quietly, have these problems, and then turn around and say, it's been working for a month and look at the results it's had.
Well, if they were good at politics, the Prime Minister's just lost his Director of Strategy a couple of days ago, and again, most of us were unaware he had a Director of Strategy. He hasn't been, obviously, doing a very good job. But this is the thing. Is it even possible for us to, deporting some people back to Albania and some other people, a lot of the deportations that are claimed deportations where we've paid people money to go and paid for their flights, it's not quite the same thing as people who don't want to go. The reality is, while we are still inside the European Convention on Human Rights, the Refugee Convention, while we've still got activist judges and lawyers, we're not going to be able to get rid of, 31,000 have come this year, we're not going to be able to get rid of them.
I think we can get it done. As I say, I appreciate the government are not helping me in making this, but they have made progress. We can say the Albania stuff's easy.
Albania was done by the last government.
But a lot of it wasn't, though. The rates have really, really dropped in the last 2 years. You've gone from about 50% successful on appeal to about 8% successful on appeal. That's a lot more people getting out. There's a lot of things you can do. The delays, it takes 2 years on average to get someone through the system. That's got to be quicker. There's stuff like funding courts we can do. There's stuff like reforming how judges interpret the law. There's a lot of actually relatively easy steps we could do to get these numbers
And do you
down
think this government is up to doing that?
Not necessarily. I hope they are. I hope they get the grip. They haven't managed it yet. There's not much to look at and feel inspired, I'll be honest.
I tell you what, James, I am absolutely flabbergasted that you're actually admitting what an absolute nonsense and mess this is.
I mean, look, so you can't point to white and say it's black, can you?
I don't know. A lot of your side have done that many a time.
Fantastic job.
Yeah,
but
well,
I think there's a lot of smaller steps that would work that don't require us to throw out human rights that protect you and me. And when I see, look, it was nonsense. There were 4 people arrested under malicious communications for projecting onto Windsor Castle last night. You know, you worry about free speech. I know that. I worry about that.
Yeah, it was from a restricted area.
The free speech protections we have.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. James Paul, fascinated to talk to you. Thank you very much. Team Political to the New World. Thank you for that. Claire Pierce, I'm surprised. James Paul, he's a fully signed up, European lefty for human rights, open the border. I mean, with all due respect, James, you're still listening. And even he admits this is a horribly farcical situation.
And it's really interesting to see those on the left who have been supportive of a Labour government and now finding it so incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. Love to hear your thoughts. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Up next, going to talk to military and defence analyst Sean Bell about, whether or not Keir Starmer is going to try and give Donald Trump a little bit of a talking to, or Donald Trump's going to give him a talking to about these claims that Israel's offensive in Gaza is genocide, because that's what the UN reckons. But we'll talk about the report up next. This is Talk.
As a police
reform in its previous guises had no policy other than leaving the European Union, which the Conservative Party delivered. So if that's what you're talking about, that was done by Boris Johnson. It was delivered by the Conservatives. So they didn't have any policies other than that of any merit at all. And Richard Tice has already said quite clearly that the manifesto they stood on in 2024 is now irrelevant. So they don't have any policies beyond the Brexit one,
all
which
manifestos
is
are
done by the
irrelevant
Tories.
after an election, apart from the person who wins.
President Trump has got one itinerary. Melania has got another itinerary. She's going to be meeting with Princess Catherine. She's going to be doing her own thing, but neither of them, as far as I understand, Ian, are going to be coming into London. I think that's probably because we certainly know there is no close friendship between President Trump and Sadiq Khan. And we know Sadiq Khan, the last time, 2018, allowed many sort of anti-Trump protesters to float a big blimp in his image, to cause all sorts of...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:50 is the time. We are the Home of Common Sense here at Talk. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk now about, well, how much Israel and Gaza might feature in the conversation between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer when they meet at Chequers tomorrow. Sean Bell is a military and defence analyst. A very good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, there's no doubt at all there's pressure politically on the Prime Minister to sort of raise the issue of Israel with Israel's biggest and almost last remaining proper ally in the world in terms of Donald Trump and the US after this Israeli IDF forces massive Gaza offensive that has begun this week, but also after a UN report claiming that, yes, there is genocide in Israel. What do you think is going to happen behind closed doors?
Yeah, it'd be fascinating. There are so many things that Sir Keir Starmer and President Trump could end up talking about, not only across in Ukraine, but as you say, across in the Middle East there. I think there's increasingly, people are uncomfortable, particularly, I mean, military action is purely a means to an end. You've got to have a political end state. What Prime Minister Netanyahu's claimed is the attack into Gaza City is all about destroying Hamas. But most military folk, myself included, you are not going to defeat Hamas by going into Gaza City. It's worth remembering you might level Gaza City, but remember the Gaza metro, those hundreds of miles of corridors underneath Gaza, apparently at least 75% of those are still up and running. Yeah. They're all controlled by Hamas. Therefore, Hamas are going to dart into those. The only people who are going to suffer if you level the city are the civilians, the Palestinians. And even, I think it was 600 of the senior IDF military and politicians who said there's no military solution now to dealing with Hamas. And even when Netanyahu talks about the hostages, and there are still allegedly, I think, 48 plus one that are injured from before, 20 potentially alive. But historically, the only way they've come out alive is through negotiation. They've not.
Well, you say that, but they only come out alive because of negotiation, because Hamas stays at the table, because Hamas wants a ceasefire, because they want some breathing space. They didn't just go out of the goodness of their hearts, these people that we've been raping and torturing and starving. Oh, yes, now we'll let them out. They didn't do it because they were nice people. They did it because they were forced to.
No, you're absolutely right. But it is interesting that, to actually go into Qatar, which is effectively what Israel did, and kill the negotiators, it makes a pretty clear statement that you're not really interested in negotiating anymore. And I think what's happening, I think the total figures now of Palestinians killed is around about 65,000
Well, the claimed figure by Hamas, but we know at least 23,000 of those are Hamas fighters.
Julia, I wouldn't quibble the figures. There's lots of figures either side, but if you only have to look at the pictures of devastation, and every time those buildings are coming down, there's a lot of people being caught up in this. And I think the growing international unease with the way this is going, and that's why this United Nations report, which is quite controversial, but actually is calling out. And I think the irony here is you remember that the Genocide Convention in 1948 was brought about specifically because of the treatment of the Jews in the Second World War.
Well, and that's where we need to use the word genocide very carefully. I mean, there's simply no evidence that there is a genocide in Gaza. If Israel wanted to commit a genocide in Gaza, Israel, we know, has the military might and the ability to do so, and they've not done so. They give warnings before they take out buildings. More bombs. This is the most extraordinary stat. People say, oh, it's a genocide. More bombs have been dropped by Israel on Gaza than people who Hamas claims have died. How on earth could that be a genocide when they warn people, we're going to go into Gaza City, we'll give you another 2 days to evacuate? How is that a genocide?
No, Julia, I'm a military guy, so I try and keep well away from the politics of all this. I simply advise that as a military guy, if I was the guy being told by Netanyahu to go into Gaza City to destroy Hamas, I'd be looking at him going, well, that's just not possible to do.
So what is the alternative? Because we went into Iraq and Syria to try to destroy ISIS. The world forces went into Afghanistan to try to destroy Al-Qaeda. And there was a civilian population of Afghanistan that had nothing to do with that. why are the rules different? This is the thing I find interesting. Why, and including military people saying the rules seem to be different for Israel. If you say, I mean, I understand you're not going to defeat the idea of Hamas. There'll always be another generation cropping up, but that doesn't stop the West enacting against terrorist threats to us.
No, you're absolutely right. But I think that's where, when you talk about a counterinsurgency, the way I spent 2 years of my life in Afghanistan, 3 tours out there, and let's not get drawn into the rights and wrongs of that. But the military action out there was deliberately designed to win the hearts and the minds of the local people, to focus them on the enemy. What the Israelis, if you were doing a similar sort of action you would try and win the hearts and minds of the Palestinians and focus them against Hamas. That's not the way this is being done. And therefore, as you said, Hamas is more an ideology now. And if your objective is to destroy Hamas, that's not going to be able to be achieved militarily.
But isn't the key thing is that the IDF and the Israelis, government directed them to avoid Gaza City. They emptied it. They tried to go house to house to get Hamas fighters. They've managed to annihilate the leadership. They're on to their third or fourth rung of leaders. But actually, the idea is to go into Gaza City, to be able to find the entrances to the tunnel network, and to either extract the hostages if they can, if we were there, then to destroy that tunnel network. At the end of the day, what is the alternative? I mean, people might say it's unsatisfactory, and it's absolutely awful that any innocent civilian in any war should die, let alone children. But it happens in every war, and we don't hold our own governments to account to the same way for every single death. But at the end of the day, what is the alternative? Just saying, oh, well, never again. No, never mind. You just carry on as you were, and we'll just wait for the next October the 7th. That's what I don't understand people are saying. What is the alternative for the Israeli government, Israeli military? As a military man yourself, what could they be doing instead?
One of the things we do in military is we spend a lot of time studying history and looking at some of the sort of wars of the past. And it's difficult to say, well, this is what happened in this, therefore it'll work in here. But what is very clear is that when you do a military operation, it's got to be to achieve a political end state. Yeah. And I think if we were to ask most of the European countries, they'd have thought that a two-state solution, a solution in which Palestinians have a state and the Israelis have a state, is the right answer. Yeah. It's pretty clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't subscribe to that view.
Well, neither do the Palestinians.
No.
The Palestinians have rejected a two-state solution 4 times.
No, yeah,
but I'm not just saying, the Palestinians don't want a two-state solution. They want a one-state solution that doesn't involve Israel existing.
But if you allow me just to wander through the argument, if the international community believes that the right answer is a two-state solution, even though neither side think that's the enduring answer at the moment, but it's pretty clear that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't believe that. And if you look at what's happening at the moment, particularly in the West Bank, a whole lot of illegal activity that even Israel admits is illegal, it looks as if Prime Minister Netanyahu's got a broader agenda for the region. And I think that's what's making the international community just a little bit less comfortable at the moment.
I just find it's really, because we're looking at this genocide report from the UN, which is a totally captured organisation, but only mentions the word tunnel, which is a key part of Hamas's ability to fight and the reason why it's been hard to kill as many of them as the IDF would want, although 23,000 is a good hit rate. They're questioning the existence of a tunnel where Sinwar's body was discovered under the European hospital. They don't mention the 7th of October attack, other than they literally state Israel launched an attack on Gaza on October the 7th. They literally don't mention the Hamas attack that provoked that. They no mention in this report that Hamas took hostages, and they still have hostages, but they accuse Israel of taking Palestinian people hostage. It is genuinely, properly a laughable report, but it's one that's been taken seriously by our politicians and by the world's media, when this is clearly a massively partisan view. And so many people get their view of what's going on in Gaza from that partisan sort of viewpoint. So appreciate you joining us, particularly with the military aspect of this. Military and defence analyst Sean Bell. I know Claire Pearce is going to want to speak up on this. We're going to talk about that also after 11, but we're going to be talking about the failure of the one-in, one-out migrant policy. Still can't get rid of anyone. And, of course, Donald Trump's state visit to the UK. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning to you. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer, and whether you're listening on DAB+ radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, thank you so much for joining me. If you do miss anything of the show, you can go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You've got no excuse for not finding it. Hit subscribe and you'll never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, Donald Trump arrived in Britain last night for his second state visit. Everyone's going historic. I mean, really, it's his second state visit because he's in office for 2 separate terms and we kind of need his help. Yeah, we really do at the moment. So that's why he's here. The red carpet is being rolled out and the US president said he loves the UK and he looks forward to meeting King Charles, who's going to meet in about an hour's time. He calls him his long-time friend. The US president, the First Lady Melania, welcomed by a guard of honour last night at Stansted Airport, as well as the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper. You lucky, lucky thing, Donald and Melania. In about 50 minutes' time, Donald Trump and Melania Trump will arrive at Windsor Castle from the house they're staying in, which is Winfield House in Regent's Park, which is the US ambassador's residence. I remember them arriving last night because the helicopters woke us up, but there we are, flying over. They're going to join them and then meet the King and Queen for an open-air greeting, and then they are going to take part in a carriage procession through the estate to the castle. We're going to have humorous pomp and circumstance and ceremony, and then a big state banquet in Windsor Castle tonight, the whole white-tied tiara brigade. A lot of people questioning, should we be rolling out the red carpet to him? Well, Sadiq Khan is one of those. He says that the US president has, in his words, perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive right-wing politics around the world. So should we be rolling out the red carpet? Well, give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK in your message to 87222. You can get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Don't forget the calls to charge at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Or maybe you think that Sadiq Khan should just pipe the hell down and help sort out London. The city is actually elected to sort out and run rather than worrying about international affairs. But you may be more interested in getting in touch on the 9 on 0344 499 1000 about Labour's one in, one out policy, which has been plunged into, I didn't think it was possible, more chaos today. We've not had a single person on a single Air France flight to Paris yet so far this week. One Eritrean man, a 25-year-old, we're not allowed to name, he was booked onto the 9 a.m. Air France flight this morning, but no, he won a last-minute bid from the High Court based on a claim that although he hadn't claimed this at the start, he had denied that he was a victim of trafficking by a gang, even though his mum had paid £1,000 for him to come on a smuggler's boat. He admitted that. But he also said he would be destitute if he was sent back to France because they're not going to put him up in a hotel. He'll have to be living in a tent. So now we're responsible for every single person in the world's accommodation. Genuinely, this is an absolute joke. It is taking the mick of the British people. And here's the best bit. That one in, one out deal that we thought was risible, it could actually look like being just one person, not even 50 a week. Doesn't touch the size of the huge numbers who come every single week. But I kid you not, on Saturday, the first flight from France of one of those one-in migrants is going to arrive, whether we've got one out or not. Yeah. Put in your own expletive at this point, because I'm not allowed to say them on air, but you can do it for me. Hope no children are present. Anyway, we're also going to be talking about another story involving an asylum seeker who entered the UK illegally. Shocker. He's been jailed for rape. The man in question, Abdelrahman Adnan Aboulela, was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for the horrific attack in Hyde Park, central London. But let's welcome more in, shall we? Anyway, all that is coming up. I want to hear your thoughts on all of the big stories of the day. I also want to hear the thoughts of Claire Pearsall, former Conservative government advisor. You have to laugh or else you'd cry. Can we talk first of all about this migrant issue? Because one of the things about Donald Trump is, love him or hate him, in America he was democratically elected twice. Yes, he did lose 2020. He promised policies which are hugely popular, even outside his own voters, like policies on tackling the border control and deportations and tackling crime and things like that. Hugely and trans stuff, all that. Free speech. I'm sorry. He's really solid on some things. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. I agree with a lot of stuff, but coming to Britain at a time when this man has basically closed the border in Mexico, mass deportations, and you can see all this bleeding heart, hand-wringing stuff, and these reports on BBC and Sky and everywhere else going, oh, these poor migrants who are so scared of being deported. But then they go, yes, they've been here for 10 years in America illegally. Well, yeah. Well, then you're going to get deported. Suck it up, honey. No, I'm sorry. I've got no sympathy. I've just got no sympathy. He was able to do it.
Yeah.
We could do it, but we're not doing it. Because, do you not think the main conversation that we'd really like to be having between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer today, when Keir Starmer, he'll be there at the banquet tonight, but also in Chequers tomorrow, should actually be about how the hell do you control your borders?
And I think Donald Trump will just turn around to him and say, you just need to get on with it. And I think that's the problem, is that we've got a Prime Minister who wants to sit there and think about things. Well, yeah, let's not. The one in, one out was always destined to fail. You've advertised it to everybody, so we're all watching. And you put journalists on a flight.
Well, they didn't put journalists on the flight. The journalists find out about the flights.
But we knew that those flights were going, so it didn't take a genius to work out which one it was, and you could put journalists on it. And the same with the Tory government in sending people to Rwanda. We sent more journalists to Rwanda than we ever sent.
We sent more Home Secretaries to Rwanda.
We had a lot of those, didn't we?
Sent more. this is... But it's a joke. The key thing is, it is possible. I mean, even Germany, which has been, come on in the waters, lovely under Angela Merkel, the current Chancellor in Germany, they have massively reduced the number of people arriving in their country. Now, it may be that as the politicians across Eastern Europe and Western Europe wake up and say, right, we're done with this, we're closing our borders, and the Schengen area is a disaster in terms of the border control, that actually we are going to just close the border. So that kind of helps solve the problem for us. But when you've got countries like France, which are not putting people up in 4-star hotels and not giving them, every possible thing in legal aid and translators and all of that, well, what a surprise it's worth coming to Britain.
But quite interestingly, with Trump creating his sort of alligator Alcatraz in Florida.
Love that.
And
as long as people are as long as there's a process, some of the legal process
it's not great,
but it's not great for Americans who
precisely. There's a lot to look at. But you had Keir Starmer and David Lammy and Yvette Cooper criticising what Donald Trump was doing, but now we hear they're looking to create camps in the United Kingdom on disused military sites, MOD sites, which are going to be the same thing as the Alcatraz.
Now, those MOD sites and barracks perfectly acceptable for our fighting soldiers, men and women and their families. That's not a problem.
But not for...
They won't be good enough quality for... The human rights lawyers won't be happy about that. And I'm telling you right now, there's no way... Because it takes 2 years to process. Now, it doesn't matter how quickly they do it. Even if you've got one person being held for a month, the human rights lawyers will say you can't. You're basically holding people illegally. I'm telling you, you can't do any of this. Is the European Convention on Human Rights, is that the problem? Is it the Refugee Convention that's the problem? Is that the only answer, or do we need to do more? Or is there something that actually, where there's a will, there's a way? So to the extent that, for instance, you could have an Act of Parliament. Now, whether or not Prime Minister could get it through, or not, basically saying, you need to, when you look at Article 8?
Yes.
Right to family life. The one that basically says, you've got rights to anything. That was about governments not interfering with their own citizens' lives.
Precisely.
And then the second paragraph, you have to look at the second paragraph, the benefits to the rest of society, to the criminality risk there. There's no basis on which anyone looking at Article 8, both paragraphs, that these lawyers and these judges should allow these people to stay, especially the criminals.
And I think that's the problem, is the interpretation of the law that is there is just being too loosely applied.
But it's not. People say the interpretation is not. It's completely turning it on its head.
And this is what the legal profession is doing, and that's my point. So the actual article itself, and you're right, there is a second paragraph that everybody misses out, and it's not very long, so I don't know why they do that. But that is being taken over by the thoughts and wishes of a judiciary who have a very different view to the rest of us. And that's what needs to stop.
But isn't that the main thing is, those people have a very different view of the rest. They genuinely do think that there's no such thing as an illegal. Everyone has a right to live wherever they want. They genuinely think that, okay, as long as they, they wouldn't have these people babysitting their own kids.
I don't want them staying next door to them.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you're happy to have these people in the country, have them babysit your kid for the weekend. Off you go. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. These people, this whole bleeding heart, hand-wringing liberal nonsense, it's all very well as long as it affects other people. And then when people say, well, I'm sorry, a girl's been sexually assaulted or a girl's been raped or something, or people don't feel comfortable walking past this hotel, well, then you can just call them all far right and bigoted, but it's not happening in their street because they're very international. They love the deli at the end of the road, and there's this lovely family from Eritrea at their daughter's school. Brilliant. Well, that's brilliant. Maybe they came here legally, so that's fine. But I'm sorry, they don't live in the real world, these people. And when they do see the real world, they just go, oh, I didn't see it. And these are the people who hang around with Keir Starmer and hang around with the Home Secretary and the Foreign Secretary. They live at a completely different sort of manosphere from us. They just don't, whatever word I'm trying to look up, they don't live with the rest of us. Even though they live in North London like I do, I can see the reality. I'm not blind to it. They are willfully blind to the reality.
Well, they are, because they've never had to interact with it, deal with it and see the consequences of it, because they live behind security gates, their children go to a nice school.
Even if they go to a state
nice
school,
area.
they go to the right state school.
Absolutely. So they're not coming in contact with it. And somebody in the deli down the road or somebody who has a nanny of a different nationality, that doesn't count.
Yeah.
You're not in inner city, Manchester, Birmingham, Rochdale, wherever it may be.
Where the impact is felt.
And where you
but
can
in
see
my
the
area,
impact.
the only school, when we looked at schools for my daughter, the only school that we could guarantee getting her into, because all the schools that were half decent, were C of E, but you had to have gone to church since word go, or live within basically sight of the gates, which we didn't. And I thought, of course we're going to send our kids to the local states primary. It didn't occur to me. That's what I'd done, didn't occur to me. And then the only one we could guarantee getting her into was a school which the Ofsted report said 75% of the children arrive speaking only Somali. Not Somali as a second language or first language, speaking only Somali. And I thought, my kid's going to be a teaching assistant at this school. She was already reading and writing at 4. There's no way my daughter is going to get any teaching where the teacher is going to be concentrating on that. And I'm not entirely sure that these mums are going to be my big busy mates in the next few years, in terms of like, they don't want to go for a glass of wine after the school event. I mean, I'm just saying, I sent my kid to school. I sent my kid to school in North London. I didn't send her to Somalia for school.
Yes.
No, it's okay. No, there'll be people who you put that on video. I'm a racist then. No, couldn't. I went to a school where I was only one of 3 white kids in a black school in St. Louis in America when I was a kid. No issue for my parents. No issue for me. Didn't care. So everyone spoke English.
Yes.
All signed into the same culture, the same language. Not remotely an issue at all. Couldn't care less about your skin colour. But I do care if your kids don't speak English when they start school. Yeah,
because you know that the resources are going to be going to those kids rather than being fairly attributed to all the rest.
It's just that simple, isn't it? I want to also come back to the issue of Israel, because we know there's a lot of pressure on the Prime Minister to sort of raise the issue of Israel and Gaza. And basically, is it pro-Palestinian or is it just anti-Israel? A lot of this from the Labour backbenchers, and especially after this absurd UN report on genocide, because it's the latest claim that that genocide is being committed by Israel in Gaza. I mean, despite a better. All civilian deaths are terrible, but in terms of no other country in the world, when committing war against an enemy that has attacked them, has ever managed to keep the rates of civilian deaths so low by a huge factor than Israel has. No other country gives the warnings that they give, say to people, and then they're told off. Oh, you're forcing people out of their homes. Well, we're going to bomb their homes because that's where the enemy is hiding out, using them as a human shield. So we're not allowed to bomb them with the people in the buildings, and we get the people out of the buildings to save their lives. We're not allowed to do that. Israel's going, well, what are we allowed to do then?
And I think that, therein lies the problem. And also we're getting the Hamas figures, the Hamas run health ministry figures. So we can't verify those. They vary from week to week as to how many they are. And also I think people are very quick to bandy around the word genocide without actually thinking what it means.
Well, know what it means. A, it has to be intent, and B, if Israel wanted to commit genocide in Gaza, they could have done so many times over the last 2 years, and they haven't. They've gone out of their way to try not to. We know they've got precision weaponry. We know they've got huge weaponry. We know about their ability. They've got a mass conscription army. They're able to do so.
Yes.
The population of Gaza has gone up since October the 7th, 2023. I mean, there's some basic facts, like the simple fact that this is a fact, more bombs have been dropped on Gaza by the IDF than people have died. Does that suggest to you indiscriminate killing of civilians, targeted civilians? But this UN report, absolutely, these people are nonsense. This UN report, they've accused Israel of genocide. They literally don't mention the 7th of October attack by Hamas. They basically just talk about how basically Israel attacked Gaza on October the 7th. I mean, they genuinely, the Hamas don't get a mention until the 8th page, and that's only in the context of Israeli claims and statements. They query whether the tunnels don't get mentioned. The fact that there is a London Underground of tunnels, that's the reason why it's hard to reach these terrorists. There's only mentioned in the literally one mention of tunnel in the entire report is to question the existence of the tunnel under the European hospital where Mohammed Sinwar's body was actually discovered. We've seen footage of the tunnel.
Yes.
They question whether it even exists. They don't mention that Hamas took hostages. They accuse Israel of taking the Palestinian people hostage. The first mention of the word is 27 pages in. 72 pages. They don't mention anything about Hamas having 40,000 enemy combatants. I say only one mention of the tunnel in 43,000 words. I mean, the idea that this is a serious report is an absolute joke. I mean, it's an absolute joke.
And it makes you wonder who got them to write that.
Well, no one got them to write it. It's what their view is. But this gets taken with the UN report on genocide, and then the politicians and the NGOs and the charities all claim it. Look, I went to Israel last week. I was within 700 metres of the Gazan border. You could see and hear warfare. You mean, what the hell was that? We had a security guard on with a Glock who'd been in the IDF. A couple of days we had two men with Glocks. This is a country that is at war. Yeah. When you arrive, the first thing at the airport at Israel is you see signs showing where the latest shelter is. You have to download an app so the Home Command Force can inform you if there's a bomb attack likely to hit where you are. You have to put your location in. It's a real, we went to, sites of bombs in Tel Aviv. It's a real and present danger for these people, but they've got the Iron Dome. But the thing that most people are talking about, is just they didn't choose this. They didn't choose this, and yet they're being accused of something they didn't do and haven't done. And I'm not being paid shekels by by the Israeli government. It's just such a clear battle between good and evil at this point. I'm flabbergasted on a daily basis how many people who I think are good people don't see that.
But how can a report also from something like the UN not mention what happened on October the 7th to start this?
Well,
why is that? That we know what happened. It is absolutely mind-blowing.
It's absolutely mind-blowing. Should we talk about Charlie Kirk? Absolutely shocking murder of Charlie Kirk. The footage just absolutely shocking. It's extraordinary. That other people didn't die as well. Again, we saw when Donald Trump's that first assassination attempt where the bullet hit his ear. People often forget. A man did die. Another shot. It wasn't only shot the throat. A man did die as a result of that. But the suspect, Tyler Robinson, made his first court appearance in an anti-suicide vest. So you can't rip the material because he's talked about to his parents he wanted to die. Lots of question marks about his motive. He's not cooperating. He hasn't got a lawyer apparently yet, but he's been charged with obviously the murder, but also trying to tamper with evidence and putting other people at risk, including and the crime, shooting, where children were present because there were children in the audience at that Utah University campus, but totally unemotional. It is extraordinary that his parents his mum recognised him from the suspect video that was put out by the police, and his father spoke to him. He confessed. He allegedly, and then they got a family member, a family friend to go to the police about it. It is extraordinary though. Again, apparently he had been radicalised online. At home, he was now in a relationship with his roommate, who is people are saying he's a male transitioning to female. You can't transition from male to female. He's a man who is identifying as a woman, but isn't a woman. But and so he was very big on trans rights and gay rights and all of that, and he believed, quite wrongly, that Charlie Kirk was against gay rights. He's very clear on camera as supporting gay rights, and the trans issue. But what's interesting about this to me, especially in the week that we saw, that those Emmy Awards for adolescents,
yes.
the drama, that was about, you know, a young man being radicalised at home on his computer. This appears to be what's happened to Tyler Robinson.
It's really quite interesting that you look at the family background, and it is, from all intents and purposes, a relatively normal upbringing.
They're good people. They turned him in. They're good people.
They did, and that's got to be really hard. And as a parent, and you'll appreciate this.
Do you think you would?
I like to think I would, but of course I don't think you ever know until you're in that position. How hard would that be, knowing that you're going to turn your child in, who's
now facing the death penalty?
The death penalty. That's a really tough call. And there was I saw a piece from the father who just believed that fundamentally you have to do the right thing in life, and fair play to him.
Yep.
Absolutely fair play to him.
I think they probably would have caught him anyway.
I think they would have done, but you know, I think that we ought to give the parents a little bit of praise for that, because they have done the right thing.
Absolutely.
Because what the child has done is awful.
Absolutely. Do you think they should have gone for the death penalty? I mean, that is in Utah the deth penalty is available. I mean, you know, in cases like this, it seems to me, you know, it's pretty clear cut. But I mean, I don't approve of the state penalty, but the death penalty. But if it's the law in that state, democratically supported,
I think that if that is what is open to you as the prosecutor to go for, then yes, you should. I'm not a fan of the death penalty. I don't like it. I don't want to see it introduced over here, and I don't like to see it in the States. But if that's the system you're dealing with, I can understand why you would go for it.
I mean, it seems to me there's something ironic about putting him in a suicide vest to prevent him killing himself when you're pushing for him to be killed by the state. There's something that just doesn't sit right on that. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on all the conversations we've just had. It would be great to hear from you and what you have to say. Of course, we have another big criminal case going on, well, non-criminal case. Madeleine McCann, the chief suspect, which the German and British police now think was responsible for the abduction and murder of Madeleine McCann. We can only call him on air, we can call him Christian B, because of an absurd German law, but there we are. We all know his surname anyway, but he has now been released from prison. So good to know a rapist and paedophile back on the streets and able to travel freely. Oh, good. I mean,
just
again, we really are in very strange times, and especially with the things he's been convicted of. I just do not understand any system, and we're worse than Germany, where you get out of prison ever again. The crimes he's admitted to, the crimes he's been found guilty of, bye-bye, you're out in a coffin, nothing to discuss. But that's just me being old-fashioned, I know. Anyway, 11:24 is the time. Do stay tuned and do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. All the topics we're talking about. Plenty of good calls to come. This is Talk.
The question I asked in Parliament was, why was a man who'd called Donald Trump a danger to the world, who'd been described by the Americans as an absolute moron, who'd been removed from public office at least twice for misfeasance, ultimately, why was he the right person to appoint? Quite apart from his relationship with Epstein, which we all knew about, why was he the right person to appoint as the guardian of the most important relationship this country has with any other country?
Reform in its previous guises had no policy other than leaving the European Union, which the Conservative Party delivered. So if that's what you're talking about, that was done by Boris Johnson. It was delivered by the Conservatives. So they didn't have any policies other than that of any merit at all. And Richard Tice has already said quite clearly that the manifesto they stood on in 2024 is now irrelevant. So they don't have any policies beyond the Brexit one,
all manifestos are irrelevant after an election, apart from the person who wins.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is indeed Talk, the home of common sense. 11:28 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's go straight to our callers. Georgina, here we go. Georgina's on the line from London and wants to have her say on Sadiq Khan putting his tuppence worth in on the state visit from Donald Trump, calling him perhaps who's done the most to fan the flames of divisive right-wing, far-right politics around the world. Georgina, go for it.
Thank you, my darling. Lovely to speak to you. Hello, Claire. Well, if Sadiq Khan is talking about fanning flames of diverse politics, then he need look no further than his own front door, or indeed just look into a mirror. Nothing Sadiq Khan says holds any weight, Julia, and I know that Donald Trump will not pass any heed to anything that little weasel of a man has to say. Trump isn't perfect by a long story. He's another man I'd like to sit down and have a long chat with. But if you look at the state of London now, then Khan can't throw any stones. As far as fanning flames of diverse politics is concerned, then Khan, in my eyes, takes some beating, as well as winning the trophies for being the worst mayor that London's ever had the misfortune of having.
And we had Boris Johnson and Ken Livingstone.
Oh, don't remind me, darling, don't remind me. I don't know how Khan has kept his job for so long, Julia, or how he's been...
It blows my mind that people still vote for him. It is so obvious. And I meet people all the time who come from abroad. They said if you come to London, you regularly, every couple of years or something, for business or for pleasure, and they can see... I mean, look, it looks beautiful. There's lots of it. You know, the buildings all got cleaned up before the Olympics in 2012, and that's still staged. You know, compared to New York, we are a paradise. But they can feel the sort of the dirt and the litter. They can see the homelessness, the rough sleepers that are often foreign, criminal gangs. They can feel the criminality, but they can see it. It's not being hidden. It's in plain sight.
It's there for everyone to see, and the fact he's been merited to get a £5,000 pay rise for doing such a deplorable job gives me the irrits. He needs to save his breath to cool his porridge, and for once try and clean up the debauchery and crime that's been allowed to permeate our beautiful city. That's what he's paid for. That's what he should do. And if I was Prime Minister, by God, that's what I'd make him do.
Absolutely. I mean, again, don't go shouting around about international affairs you know nothing about when you can't even run the city that you're actually employed to run. Georgina, thank you very much indeed for that, as always. Daniel, we've got lots of friends of the show today calling it. Daniel's in Epsom and wants to have his say on the massive success, I'm sure you'll agree, Daniel, of the one in, one out policy. None out and possibly one in on Saturday.
Oh,
I know, there you go. That's the sound.
How you doing?
That's it. Yeah.
Do you know what it is? It's almost a feeling of exasperation. Okay, you've got the Uniparty, the Conlab Uniparty, and this Labour government is woeful, and they're scrabbling around for different ideas. I know, one in, one out. Oh no, what we'll do, we'll put them here. We'll put them in hotels. Do you know what they don't seem to understand? Or the British majority don't want any illegal immigration at all.
None in. None in.
We don't want any. We want the 1.5 or 2 million people that are here illegally deported. We don't want them here. We don't want illegal immigration. What is it that they don't understand? If I worked for you, Julia, and you gave me a clear and concise instruction, I'd do what you asked. The British majority are giving this government and the last government, and probably the government before...
2010 onwards.
Clear and concise instructions to do something that the British majority want, and they're purposefully going out of their way not to do it.
Why do you think that? Why?
Why do I think? I don't know why they're doing it. I think Europe is being flooded on purpose from people from the third world. I don't think they like national identities. I think they want to split apart and disparate. We're easier to control. I think I'm quite I've become a bit of a conspiracy theorist because of it, and it's my dearest hope that Donald has a word in King Charles's ear and says, "Listen, we're friends. I want you to dissolve this government and let the people."
No, I will. No, see, this stuff about, even J.D. Vance and the stuff they say, I think an Elon Musk, the rally last Saturday, I think is absolutely outrageous. How bloody dare these people interfere? I hold no candle for Keir Starmer. He's the democratically elected Prime Minister of this country. We knew what would happen if people didn't vote Tory or voted for reform. We knew the deal, and we knew that the Tories needed a good kicking, and we knew we'd get Labour. We knew they'd be useless. We didn't realise they'd be quite this useless, admittedly. It's a democratic nation. I'm sorry. I bloody dare any foreign politician have their say on what we do.
I know. I mean, I know it can't be done, but I wish it. I'm just saying, I wish it could be, because the thing is, I'm so sick. I want my children to grow up in the country that I grew up in,
and not to want to leave for Dubai or somewhere.
Yeah. I want that sense of common decency. I mean, I grew up on a council estate in SE21. No father. I lived with my grandparents, and people. Back then, there was a kind of common decency was common. It was everywhere. You know, people generally, there was always bad eggs, but you had, people generally had respect. But I think the biggest contributing factor to most of our problems is third world immigration. It's destroying the fabric of Britain. And it's about time we had someone. Do you know what? When Reform win the Welsh Senedd, that's when the panic's going to set in the Unity.
And they're on the polls. That does look very likely. Daniel, I have to leave it there, but great call. Thank you very much. I think a lot of people will be nodding along to every single word, particularly at the beginning. Claire Pearson, I certainly do. I'm going to go to a quick break. Up next, we are going to be talking to a Reform UK councillor who co-leads the party's Law and Order campaign. The law and order of being able to police your borders and get rid of foreign criminals, because if you arrive here illegally, you are a foreign criminal. We'll talk to her about that one in, one out chaos and plenty more besides. This is Talk.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. Just to let you know that Marine One, the helicopter that the President uses, has arrived at Winfield House in London and will be taking the President and the First Lady to Windsor Castle, where they're going to be greeted by the Prince and Princess of Wales. That's William and Kate, before they then meet the King and the Queen. And then we're going to have a horse-drawn carriage procession through the estate to the castle. That's all going to happen. Luckily, I think the weather is rather better in Windsor than it is in rain-soaked London, so that'll be cheering them up. We'll keep you updated on all of that and give you some footage of it as well if you're watching on our YouTube or your connected device. Right now, though, let's talk about more about, just got to this one in, one out deal that so far is none out, even though we were told there were 3 flights this week. There were the illegal channel migrant arrivals who've been detained since early August would be on those flights. And we possibly, pretty likely, on Saturday going to have one in, even if no one is put out. And the extraordinary situation where an Eritrean man aged 25 whose mum paid £1,000 for him to be smuggled across the channel in early August. He has been allowed to stay for the meantime after the High Court last night blocked his deportation on the basis of that he had claimed he was human trafficked, even though he made no mention of that in the first few days until some lawyers had got hold of him after his arrival. But also that he would be destitute if sent back to France because he's not going to be put up in a 4-star hotel. You couldn't make it up if you tried. Let's talk to Lady Cunningham. She's a Reform UK councillor in London. She's also co-leader of Reform's Law and Order campaign. Very, very good morning to you,
Julia.
Just first, you'll react again if you can keep it clean, because we're not allowed expletives on air. Can you give us your thoughts on this abject failure of what was already a laughable scheme of one in, one out?
It was already a laughable scheme. Let's put it into perspective. Since the 7th of August, when the deal began, 5,400 migrants, I think, have already arrived by small boats. Not a single one has arrived. It's obviously
gone.
One out and thousands in. Even if the flights did start, the chances of being removed are almost zero when thousands are crossing every month. Everyone knows, and migrants included, is that you're far more likely to end up in a taxpayer-funded hotel than on a flight back to France. And worse, Julia, Labour have the audacity to parade this as a win. Yeah. In reality, it's such an embarrassment that Great Britain has agreed to a scheme where France is the one who decides who comes in and who goes out. We foot the bill and nobody's ever sent back. By the way, we get no veto on who they send to us. Yeah. That's not control. That's just surrender. And let me just add, sorry, I'm so infuriated. It's not a deterrent at all. It's an advertisement. It tells every smuggler and every migrant, get here, and the chances of you being sent back are virtually zero.
Well, we're told it's a pilot scheme. Apparently the French say it's experimental. But even when we were told about the scheme one in, one out, everyone was pointing out it was 17 in and 1 out on the numbers. That was assuming they could deport 50 a week. If they can't even do a handful this week, then it's even more laughable. So a laughably poor scheme is even more, absurd right now. How damaging do you think this is for Prime Minister? Because a lot of what Keir Starmer and his former Home Secretary and current Home Secretary would say was, abject failure of the Rwanda scheme, all these policies, and the Tories were incompetent, didn't know what they're doing, but, they're going to smash the gangs. That hasn't happened. They've seen, a 40% increase in the number of people arriving, 31,000 in the last year, or just this calendar year so far. But that they can get on top of it by doing deals, by having good, constructive conversations with the French and doing things the right way. Already that is showing it doesn't work.
Well, it just shows how weak and frankly stupid our government is to negotiate such a deal and to have the audacity to call it a win. They're selling a scheme that will send maybe 1 to 2% back while 98% stay. And this will never end until we unshackle ourselves from the legal handcuffs of the ECHR. And as long as we're in the ECHR, the Tories didn't have the guts to do it, and that's why the Rwanda scheme failed. Lawyers will block deportations on vague claims of destitution in France or modern slavery. And Starmer knows this. But he literally wrote the manual on how to weaponize the Human Rights Act. And that's why the deal is always doomed, because we are run by a government who effectively believes in the human rights of foreign criminals and foreign illegal migrants over the human rights of British people.
And indeed, we've had that argued and in court by government representatives and indeed by judgments being made by courts. But here's the thing. What would you do differently? Because getting out the ECHR, yeah, I think that's a no-brainer now, and the Refugee Convention. However, you can do all of that, but all of this stuff is already enshrined into the Human Rights Act here in the UK. You want to try and change that? Well, that's going to take a while. You're going to get some fighting, even if it's in the manifesto, if you got elected, fighting from the House of Lords. But you've also got hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of activists, judges and lawyers who will use every little rinky-dink, little chink in, of they can find in the armour to make sure that people stay.
Yeah, that's why this one in, one out deal is effectively a lawyer's charter. But Julia, the Human Rights Act was never meant to enforce the ECHR. Actually, ECHR was around, I think, about 40 years before that, and we didn't have the Human Rights Act. Tony Blair passed it as a way to get closer to the EU. So the fact that we need the Human Rights Act to enforce human rights in our country is laughable. We taught the world about human rights.
Very true.
And just because we don't accept illegal migrants, who some have gone on to rape our young girls, how do we know they're not terror cells from Afghanistan, Julia? We have no idea who these men are. And just because we're not willing to accept them, that doesn't make us some kind of despotic regime like Belarus. I was called hard right on GB News for advocating for this. Yeah. That is how deluded the political and journalistic class is about what British people want. And frankly, that's why Reform's doing so well.
And you certainly are doing well in the polls. There's no doubt at all about that. And of course, now your leader, Nigel Farage, big pals with Donald Trump. He was over in the States recently and had a lunch with him. What do you hope that Donald Trump will be telling our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer? I mean, he's being all obsequious. He's rolling out the red carpet. He's doing the stuff you've got to do, even though you know he's clearly not a big fan of Donald Trump's politics. But what do you hope that Donald Trump could say to our Prime Minister about these issues?
That any politician like Sadiq Khan, who is saying that we should not have Donald Trump in our country, is betraying our national interests. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. Listen, I wanted Trump to win over Harris. If Harris had won and I was in government, I would open welcome to her, because we are dealing with the biggest, not only commercial partner, but defense partner, every partner that we have, and we must welcome them with open arms. And any politician who says that is not representing Britain and is not representing our best interests. What I do hope Trump says to Starmer is that freedom of speech is not something that you take away at will. It is not up to the government to decide what the people see or read, and it's not up to a Secretary of State to decide what's misinformation or disinformation. Number one. And number two, I want him to speak to Starmer and say we need to be an AI superpower, and we can partner with the US for that. But we cannot be an AI superpower with the net zero madness that Ed Miliband is inflicting on us.
There's a £30 billion deal with some US tech giants that includes AI. But again, that involves huge amounts of energy, which is 4 times more expensive here than the UK, than the US. A lot of people are saying, what has been given in return for that deal?
Well, I think, I tell you what's been, so copyright is a huge issue for AI, because they need to be able to access information that's protected by copyright. And we have a huge wealth of copyright data, for instance, from the NHS, our universities. We have a lot of writers, all this. And I think there will be a deal with that. And the only way to compete with China is to really re-examine those copyrights, because they don't have that, and they're going to beat us on the AI race. We cannot let China as well be an AI superpower if we're bogged down with regulation. We have to realize that it is an AI race right now, and we're not winning it, and we don't want China to win it, and we want to be partners with America. But we need efficient and affordable energy supply, our own energy supply, and Labour's doing everything to stop that.
What do you make of, just finally, the 4 people have been arrested after images of Jeffrey Epstein with Donald Trump and with Prince Andrew projected onto Windsor Castle? The issue of Jeffrey Epstein and his relationship with so many powerful men has been big news over the last week, but it actually touches on all of the men, the key figures involved this week. The King, his brother Prince Andrew, clearly a close friend with Epstein, even after convicted of his child prostitution case back in 2009. Prince Mandelson, appointed as ambassador to the US by Keir Starmer and given full confidence, even when it was known that he again stayed really close friends with Jeffrey Epstein after that. And of course, Donald Trump, who admittedly is probably the man who broke up his friendship with Epstein rather earlier. What do you make of that man's image, that man's name and that man's crimes being associated with this trip?
Well, the only thing that concerns me is that we have a prime minister and a Labour Party who accused Farage of being on the side of Jimmy Savile for trying to protect freedom of speech, yet they actively promoted and sent someone who's best friends with one of the most prolific paedophiles in my history to represent us in the USA. Starmer glossed over it. Does that mean he approves of Epstein? Does that mean that Epstein, he wasn't just an associate of Epstein, he was his best friend. He was Petey. He was bathrobe Petey to Epstein. He said he loved him even after he was convicted of paedophilia. And I just don't buy it that Starmer didn't know. And if he ignored not to know, just so he could stand up in Parliament and not lie in quotation marks, then that is also a dereliction of duty. Yeah. He's the Prime Minister. He must know everything. I didn't know simply doesn't cut it for a Prime Minister.
No, indeed. Leila Cunningham from Reform UK, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Claire Pistol, do you want to come back on any of that?
Yeah, no, I agree with the points on Peter Mandelson and what Keir Starmer knew, and it doesn't fly at all. And you can't accuse other people of doing something when you've basically just done it yourself. Yeah,
again, if you're still going to appoint someone, you think it's not really a problem than being mates with somebody who pleaded guilty to basically soliciting 14-year-olds. You can't 14-year-olds can't be prostitutes. No, they're victims of child abuse. Yeah. It's really that simple. 14-year-olds are kids. Not a problem for Keir Starmer apparently. He wasn't that bothered about it because, having a teenage daughter himself, apparently not an issue. I've got some serious questions about this. Yeah. 11:48 is time. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to talk to Rafe Hadel-Mankiw about Donald Trump and saying he loves the UK and calling King Charles his friend. That's up next. This is Talk.
The question I asked in Parliament was, why was a man who'd called Donald Trump a danger to the world, who'd been described by the Americans as an absolute moron, who'd been removed from public office at least twice for misfeasance.
Yeah.
Ultimately, why was he the right person to appoint? Quite apart from his relationship with Epstein, which we all knew about, why was he the right person to appoint as the guardian of the most important relationship this country has with any other country?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:51 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk a little bit more about the big state visit, historic, unprecedented second visit by a US president during his terms in office to the monarch of this country. It was the Queen last time, the late Queen. Now, of course, it is the King. Let's talk to Rafe Hadel-Manky, who's a royal commentator and historian. Very good morning to you, Rafe.
Always a pleasure, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. Well, I think I have to say, I think they may already be running late. It's 11:52 on my clock, and at 11:55, Donald Trump is supposed to be with Melania, arriving at Windsor Castle to be greeted by William and Kate. So I'm not quite sure, unless they can make it in 3 minutes. I don't think he's even left the US ambassador's residence in Regent's Park in London yet. So those timings have already gone a little bit wrong, haven't they?
Well, at least they don't have to deal with any traffic
That's
in
the
latter
thing.
part of this trip, because everything, of course, is taking place within the Windsor estate itself. I'm off to Windsor actually later on to do some commentary.
Oh, I thought you were going to be going to the banquet. Oh, come on, Rafe. I'd love to see you in white tie.
I wasn't. I didn't say I wasn't doing that as well. But yes, Windsor has been completely cut off. There's a big wall because of the fear of protests and so forth. So a very unusual state visit. A state visit where no member of the public will actually get to see any of the great pageantry unless they're watching TV.
And what do you think? I mean, look, we know why. They know there'll be protests. I mean, last time he came, even the London Mayor, who's written this ridiculous article in The Guardian today, just be a grown-up, for goodness sake. Understand what we're doing here, with the big baby blimp in Parliament Square. Not that Trump went to Parliament Square at all. He's not been allowed to speak in Parliament, address Parliament, because, of course, they made sure that the visit was, oh, what a shame Parliament's not sitting from Wednesday onwards. Sorry about that, President. I mean, it is embarrassing that we can't have someone who, I don't agree with every one of his policies. I don't personally think he's a lovely person, but the inability of this country to be grown-ups and understand he's the leader of the free world, is our biggest, most important ally of the biggest, most important country in the world, and we should roll out the red carpet for him if he wants to meet the sodding king.
Yeah, there's this ridiculous disconnect, We should be grateful, actually, that in President Trump, we have the most Anglophilic president we've ever had. He's also, compare him to Joe Biden. Joe Biden was such an Anglophobe, and it runs deep in the Biden family. Joe Biden's mother once slept on the floor of a small hotel when she was told that the Queen had once stayed in one of the bedrooms because she didn't want to run the risk of staying in the same bed.
Do you know what I mean? Where are you even at? I mean, that's the thing. This is actually a boon for us. This is a benefit for us. We've already got, preferential, not by March, but preferential, tariffs from the US president. I know they're going to be pushing for more of that. But what do you make of the relationship claimed? We don't hear these claims from, the king when they don't talk about this stuff, but going against all protocol, describing the king as his good friend.
Well, we know that their friendship goes back to the 1980s, actually. Prince Charles, as he then was, travelled to Palm Beach and went and visited Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago, which he had just bought a couple of years prior to that. We can't say that there's ever been a very strong friendship there, but we do know that... I can't
see they've got much in common. I can't think of anything they would agree on, other than they quite like gold.
After the divorce between the king and his former wife, he was courted. She was courted by Donald Trump, which I don't think she was very happy about either. So I'm not sure whether the children of Diana will be too happy about that episode of Trump's romantic affairs. But certainly, we do know that the king wrote to him after his assassination attempt last year. King wrote to him again after his inauguration. Melania, in her memoirs, which were ghostwritten, but in her memoirs, she claims to write regularly and says that they're pen pals with the king. Quite how much of that is true, I don't know. We know that the king is not like his mother, is a bit less discreet We know he's going to push some of his own ideas on energy and the environment.
Good luck with that.
Will go down? We don't know, but we'll see.
We'll just say, just breaking news, the President and the First Lady are on their way to Windsor Castle in Marine One. I mean, we know that the security is just off the scale for this trip, particularly in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, and that will impact a lot of this. So a lot of this is not just about protests, it's about literally keeping the President safe on UK soil.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this really is the biggest security operation since the coronation. It's also actually, even though no one's going to actually see it face to face, it's the biggest state visit we've ever had. We've never had such a huge turnout of our military. Every aspect of this is truly impressive.
And they've done that for Donald Trump, haven't they? Like, it's the most number of officers, it's the most this, it's the most that.
Exactly. He wants those photo opportunities. If that's what it takes for him to give us preferential treatment and deals, so be it. It's only the cost of a few million. We've just had announced 20 billion investment by Microsoft, 5 billion by Alphabet. The money from America can pour in. If this is what we need to do it, so be it.
Very, very fair points. Thank you very much indeed. That's Rafe Hadel-Mankey's royal commentator and historian. Claire Pearsall, is it worth it? Look, I mean, look, my audience will know. I am not a monarchist. I'm not. I'm huge respect for the late Queen. I have to say, I've got to say, really like the current Queen. Love a bit of Camilla. I've got a lot of time for people who do their duty and get on and do their job well. It's just not the form of head of state that I would have. That's just my view. But this is when this is quite literally our trump card. We have a royal family that is well known, and people like Donald Trump love it. And we can play this hand, and it works for us.
And we are exceptionally good at it. We have a royal family who know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly what buttons to push. Windsor Castle looks absolutely stunning at any point, even when this bad
a lot
weather.
of the footage we've got right now is of people have got, which is actually of London, where it's rain swept, but actually Windsor Castle is grey. I mean,
but it always looks...
we ain't getting an Indian summer this September, it's quite clear, but it's not. It is dry, so...
But it always looks stunning, and with carriages and horses and armed forces on patrol. We do this stuff very well. We do pomp and circumstance and pageantry.
And your son's involved with the cadets. I mean, you're sort of imbued in all of this stuff.
And I've come from a military family as well, so I'm always up for that. I always think it's great. Big bands performing, you can't beat it.
What do you make of the political aspects when you get the Sadiq Khans and all the others? And we know all of these politicians who are in the front line, front bench now, the Yvette Coopers, David Lammy, they've all, let's see, for a better expression, slagged off Donald Trump, their opposition. It's almost like they didn't know they'd ever be leaders and they'd ever actually be in power. Them, I've said lots of things, but that's my job. It's like, but these are people you think you've done that. You might have to meet him as Foreign Secretary or Home Secretary or Deputy Prime Minister. Think it through, guys. Play the long game. No, but seriously, it's just, I think it's really bizarre. But about them all now having to kowtow and shake hands and be obsequious to this man. But not understanding, he is the leader of the free world, militarily, economically, the powerhouse that is America. You want them on your side.
Well, of course you do. And I think it was James Ball, one of your guests earlier, who said Trump probably won't remember Yvette Cooper's name, let alone what she's said about him.
I'm hoping we won't remember Yvette Cooper's name in the past, but that's the key thing. Thank you very much indeed. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Love to get more of your calls on air 0344 499 1000 about the Trump visit, what Sadiq Khan has had to say about divisive far-right politics from Donald Trump, but also that one in, one out that is from migrant deal, which basically is none out and one in on Saturday, regardless of get anyone out at all. Do call in and have your say. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon to you. Welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. And whether you're listening on DAB Plus Radio, on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, or your connected device, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Very much appreciate your company. Coming up in this hour, well, Donald Trump and Melania Trump right now are in Marine One. They're in the helicopter, well, 3 helicopters travelling from North London, where he's been staying overnight after arriving at Stansted last night. Be met by Yvette Cooper. I mean, that after a 5 or 6 hour journey, that's not a treat, is it, as Foreign Secretary? That's her job this week. And they stayed overnight at the US Ambassador's residence in North London. I know what time they arrived because they woke me up last night with their helicopters, thank you very much, and flying over the garden. But they are now on their way to Windsor Castle. They're already running late. I've been given a itinerary, I've been given the full timings. I think the Royals normally do very strict timings. 11:55 a.m. Will and Kate will greet Donald Trump and his wife at Windsor Castle before joining them to meet the King and Queen for an open-air greeting. Well, in exactly 7 minutes' time, they're supposed to start the next bit, which is a carriage procession through the estate to the castle. So they're already running a bit behind time, so that will not please the Royals, so not their flunkies who like that. But anyway, we'll be talking about that. We'll have footage, obviously, of not looked at our YouTube page. Have a look. Go and have a look, because of course we'll be having some footage on there. Meanwhile, Labour's one in, one out policy has been plunged into more chaos after the High Court last night blocked the government from sending a small boat migrant back to France because he claimed he would be destitute if he was sent back there. He also claimed that he'd been a victim of human trafficking, even though his mum paid the £1,000 fee for him to get across from France to the UK. And he didn't mention anything about being human trafficked in the first 3 days. Just after some lawyers had got hold of him, he suddenly found that he had. It's an easy thing to forget if you're a 25-year-old Eritrean man, but there we are. Anyway, we're supposed to be on a flight to France at 9 o'clock this morning, but he's still here. But don't worry, folks, the one in, one out is still going to go ahead, because we're still going to get the one in at least on Saturday morning coming from France. I kid you not. You couldn't make this stuff up. Meanwhile, Tyler Robinson, the man accused of murdering MAGA influencer and activist Charlie Kirk, has appeared in court for the first time. The 22-year-old appeared remotely in court wearing a suicide prevention vest. He faces 7 charges, including aggravated murder, with prosecutors seeking the death penalty in Utah. Also, we're going to be talking finances here. We've got the latest inflation figures remaining at 3.8% in this country, over 5% when it comes to food. Feels a lot more for some other food stuff still, doesn't it? But the Office for Budget Responsibility, they've told the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, remember her, that its previous pre-budget forecasts, ahead of the budget on November the 26th, for productivity growth were too optimistic. They're going to downgrade their predictions for productivity growth, so that means even more of a black hole. And yay, more tax rises for us, because they just are not going to be cutting the spending, are they? Plus, are police officers being set up to fail? Do they need clear guidance on whether they should arrest people for social media posts? Well, Nick Smart, the chairman of the Police Superintendents Association, says that absolutely they are. He's become the latest senior officer to call for clarity from the government in the wake of free speech rows over criminal charges for comments made online, most of which, by the way, are clearly not against the law. If you're not inciting violence against someone or abusing somebody racistly, I'm really sure you should be First Amendment US style, be allowed to say anything well you darn well please. And yes, that includes being hateful. You're allowed to be hateful. Hate is a normal human emotion. I don't see why it shouldn't be allowed to be expressed. I'd also rather like to know when people think these things. But anyway, all that coming up. Love to hear your thoughts on everything. Do get in touch, whether it's about Donald Trump and his state visit, whether it's about what the London Mayor Sadiq Khan piping up. Oh, Lord, look at me, look at me. No one's paying attention to me for 5 minutes. He's claimed in an article for The Guardian. Of course it was The Guardian. Of course he could have done it on the BBC, would have been the same difference. But he's claimed the US president has perhaps done the most to fan the flames of divisive far-right politics around the world. What's your reaction to that? What's your reaction to the none-out, possibly more than one-in migrant deal that we've got with France, the abject failure of that, and the latest excuses being used by illegal migrants and their lawyers? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1. Standard network rate message. Joining me, I'm delighted to say, still in the studio is Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thanks for having me.
Just checking. I'm free, you know, fully some fancy free tonight. Are you invited to a state banquet at Windsor Castle?
No, I think my invite must have been lost in the post. I'll tell you what.
It's terrible, the post these days.
It's awful. But I think President Trump should be really, really grateful for one aspect tonight. He doesn't have to share his state banquet with Ed Davey.
This is it. The Liberal Democrat leader I've got to be honest with you, laughably said as a matter of principle he wouldn't go to the state banquet.
It's performative politics at its absolute worst.
As if anyone would have noticed.
Exactly.
Although, to be fair, at least he's been consistent. He goes, I don't like this guy, I don't approve what this guy does, I want to be able to criticise him. I mean, there's a little bit more consistency there, whereas, you know, Sadiq Khan, that'll be all running along, putting his little white tie on.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be there sort of expecting everybody to bow and scrape to him as well. But I would love to go. I absolutely would love to go. I think it would be fascinating. I'd like to meet President Trump. I don't agree with everything he says, but I still want to do it.
I'm trying to wonder how quickly I can get my hands on a tiara. But there we are. Coming up just a moment, we're going to talk to Rick Gates, former Deputy Campaign Manager for Donald Trump back in 2016. But just to let you know, the President of the United States President and his wife have landed at Windsor. They are about to be greeted by the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, before joining them to meet the King and Queen for an open-air greeting. They're already running about 15 minutes late, as far as I can tell. Then they're going to have a carriage procession through the estate to the castle. We'll bring you footage of that as we get it. Right now, though, let's talk to Rick Gates, former Deputy Campaign Manager for Donald Trump. A very good afternoon to you.
Good to see you, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. So, how significant is this visit for Donald Trump? We know he's a big Anglophile. We know he loved the late Queen. We know he loves the pomp and circumstance. But how significant for him will be having a second supposedly historic invitation to come and have a state visit to this country?
Well, as you know, he likes making history, and this certainly sets that banner for him having a second state visit. And look, he knows this. There's nobody that does pomp and circumstance and pageantry better than the Brits. And I think that the way that the British government, in conjunction with the royal family, the planning of this event was actually done very well. They have obviously learned a lot about Donald Trump over the years. Yeah. They bring him in, they do a lot of the pageantry up front, they do a lot of the feel-good moments, meeting the King and Queen, meeting the Princess of Wales. And then they go into the second part, which is obviously talking about the tough stuff, tariff negotiations, Gaza, Ukraine, all the kind of bigger ticket political items, but in a way that they can get Donald Trump in a very good mood. I suspect that was a big part of the strategy, is how can we make the president happy going into those tougher discussions. So I think today, while I look at the schedule, it's a packed day, it's a full day. I think it is exactly a type of day that the president will very much love and revere.
I mean, there's no doubt at all that, as poor Zelensky learnt to his cost, you know, Donald Trump likes quite a lot of sucking up, doesn't he? Is it demeaning? I know a lot of people who don't like Donald Trump here in this country, who are very critical, whether it's London Mayor Sadiq Khan or others, or indeed many leading members of our own government who are sort of having to suck it up today. Is it demeaning to Britain to roll the red carpet out and to do all this and, you know, put the King and Queen and the Prince and Princess of Wales on show to do this? Is it demeaning, or is this just how real politics works? He's the most powerful man in the world. We need his, you know, we need economic benefits, security and defence benefits from him, and that's just how things work.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, this is about what it's going to take to get what the best thing for the British people, whether it's through the trade negotiations or a special relationship with the United States. Donald Trump's been very tough on the British government at times, rightfully so, in our opinion, on this side of the pond. But I think this is an opportunity for those bonds to be, I think, reforged to a different degree. So I think it's absolutely warranted. And look, at the end of the day, I think this is one thing that the Brits do very well, regardless of who's in office. where they're in office, it is important to respect that office. You guys know tradition better than probably anybody in the world.
Yeah.
And so I think there is an element there that makes absolute sense. Obviously, there are degrees of what you can do with a visit. This is actually, I think, going way beyond what maybe some other state leaders might get.
Yeah.
But given the relationship between our two countries, I think it's absolutely warranted.
That's how it works. Yeah, I must correct myself. I said I've seen a helicopter landing in Windsor Castle's grounds. In fact, it was the first of 3 helicopters called security. The helicopter that is landing right now is the one that is carrying the president and his wife Melania. They are arriving, and we know that the door was just partially open for the aides to sort of gather the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Kate, to come out to meet the president and his wife, of course, who arrived in the UK last night. There's been a little bit of a furore, and some 4 arrests have been made, Rick Gates, last night after images of Jeffrey Epstein were plastered all over, sort of shone all over Windsor Castle. It was breaching. I couldn't work out what they'd been arrested for. We talk about free speech in this country, but it was a heightened security, and it was an unauthorised activity around Windsor Castle. It just showed that actually not much proper good security at that point last night. A big question mark over that. But the Jeffrey Epstein issue is still a big issue in America. Donald Trump keeps saying, look, this is non-story, it's not interesting. But we've got, basically, this week, we've got the King, whose younger brother clearly had close associations and stayed with Jeffrey Epstein after he was convicted of child sex prostitution. Basically, we've got Keir Starmer. He's spending the day at Chequers with Keir Starmer, the president, and Keir Starmer just in a huge heap of hot water right now over his decision to appoint Peter Mandelson, best friends, Petey, he was known as, to Jeffrey Epstein. Again, a good friend of his, remained a good friend after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of those crimes. And of course, claims about Donald Trump and the claims about this,
that are going to kind of, I think, deflect some of the attention away, but it is going to come back. Until these issues are resolved, a lot of questions are answered. I think this issue is going to be around for quite some time.
Indeed. Well, we know security, you mentioned Charlie Kirk, security has been massively ramped up after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a big, MAGA influencer, hugely supportive of Donald Trump and a very big figure. I mean, I think for most Brits, I think younger Brits would have been very much aware of him, but most Brits probably unaware of just how famous and how influential Charlie Kirk has been on the right of American politics in recent years. And horrific shooting of him, dead. And now, yesterday, Tyler Robinson, his alleged killer, made his first court appearance in a suicide vest to prevent him from committing suicide, to be able to use it to hang himself. He has apparently not been cooperating with the police, but he was turned in by his own family to the police. And it's emerged that a possible motive may well be that he's in a relationship with a man identifying as trans, who was his roommate, and that he'd become quite politicised, particularly on the internet, over trans and gay rights. How concerned are you about the radicalisation of young people, particularly, it does appear to be, on the left in America and indeed over here in the UK?
Very concerned, and this is what we've talked about, the impact of social media. If you look at Mr. Robinson's background, you look at his family, his stability, everything that he had in the sense of being normal, and then wondering at what point he was radicalized and what those drivers were to radicalization. And when you start peeling back the layers, what you learn is that social media was a major component of it. Where was he getting his information? Where is he getting these types of positions that he began supporting? When did the hate start? And we're seeing this all across America. I mean, this is not the first individual that's been radicalized. We have all sorts of different types of radicalization, whether it's religion, ideological, or others. So I think there is a overwhelming
freaking out about that, but they've been greeted. The weather's not looking great, and they're just about to head to the front steps or the back steps, wherever they are. I'm trying to work out the exact location they're at, where the King,
and Kate in particular, given her earlier health concerns and her role back inside government and what of influence she is going to be, moving forward within the royal family. And I think it's fantastic that she was able to attend and participate. And there's no doubt Donald Trump and Melania Trump as well will look at that.
He'll want the glamour, won't he? Well, actually, they just walked to the back. This is the back of Windsor Castle. AI. what has Britain offered in return to get these big deals to sort of as part of the, the economic benefits of this trip that Keir Starmer can trump? And indeed, what are we going to hear on things like, tariffs on steel? We're facing 25% tariffs on exports to going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think the AI is by far the biggest one on the pinnacle. I think if you look at what President Trump wants to do with AI, what we've done with it in our country, some of that carries on. But certainly a lot of the steel, aluminum tariffs, I think it'll be very interesting to see how today goes, how it's viewed, what the U.S.'s position coming into these tariff negotiations were, and then watching the outcome tomorrow. Will all of this today soften Donald Trump's position on several of those key issues with respect to Britain? And I think it's very important for Keir Starmer and his government. They're going to have to make some choices. Are they going to be more focused on trade and tariffs and the impact and helpfulness for the British public, or are they going to focus more of their time and attention on things like Gaza and Ukraine, which the president will not be as interested in? Yeah. This should be about making good deals on behalf of the British people. Let's see what the British government does.
Very interesting. Ricky Gates, so appreciate your time. Former Deputy Campaign Manager for Donald Trump in 2016. Still with me in the studio, Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government Advisor. You and I can't take our eyes off the screen. If we're looking up, that's because we've got TV screens above us. We can see the footage of how. Let's make sure we put on the screen back up. We've got the footage. We've got the horse-drawn carriages. The white horses have arrived in all the livery. Grey beautiful horses. Gold coach. You know all this stuff.
Grey horses.
Are they grey? You're not
they're
right.
Grey.
You're right, Mark. They're not. You're not. They look white. You're not allowed to call them white. She knows all this stuff. But they've arrived for this horse-drawn carriage procession through Wisconsin. Of course, no members of the public able to see this directly, to actually to be along the route because of concern about protest, but also about security. But we've got they're all actually entering the horse-drawn carriages now. But this is the stuff Donald Trump lives for, isn't it?
Absolutely. And what's not to love about it? You have got a gold carriage, you have horses, you have footmen in red tailcoats, and you've got the King and Queen of the United Kingdom. Yeah. Sitting right.
And you've got the glamour
you.
with Kate as well. Come on, we know that.
Absolutely, you've got the glamour with Kate, who looked absolutely stunning. That burgundy coat dress, beautiful. I thought Melania sort of a charcoal grey.
I thought they all looked a bit dowdy.
But they're not the centre of attention, are they? They don't want to take the centre of attention away from the King and President Trump. So they know their part in this.
The bit play. It looks smart and appropriate. But,
absolutely.
Why don't we go and work as royal editors and fashion consultants?
We should.
Look it up, really. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you. Give us a call. They've just arrived. They've been greeted. There's horse-drawn carriage. How significant is this? Does the pomp and circumstance, do you agree with Sadiq Khan? I mean, I'm surprised if you're watching and listening to this, if you do, about fanning the flames of divisive politics. What do you want us to get out of this trip? Because it's all, this is basically about British national interest, our influence with the most powerful man on the planet, about what we can get for Britain, what we can get in terms of furthering our national interest around the world. This stuff matters, and this is grown-up politics. That's what it is you have to do this stuff, and if this is what someone wants, this is what someone wants. I'm sorry, it's crazy not to do this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. I'd also particularly like to know how much you would really like Donald Trump to explain to Keir Starmer how to control our borders and how to deport illegal migrants, given that we can't do either in this country. Do give us a call, 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
Do you think he should step down?
I think there's a very strong argument for him doing that. I think we need to, though, really get to the bottom of what exactly has happened, and that's...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. 12:26 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. And if you are watching on our YouTube page, do suggest you, if you haven't, if you've listened before, but you want to actually, not only do you get me and Claire Pearsall, you lucky things, you also get, of course, the horse-drawn carriage of the procession that is taking place at Windsor Castle right now. I mean, we are talking about all the stops being pulled out. Grey horses have been pointed out. They look white. We're not allowed to call them white. She knows her horses, does Claire Pearsall. All of the pomp and ceremony, and we've got the US President Donald Trump and Melania riding with the King and the Queen. Kate and William, the Prince and Princess of Wales, also there. This is only the beginning of this official state visit, staying overnight in Windsor Castle, all of that, the state banquet, And what that said, he could have got a taxi home, couldn't he, back to the US ambassador's residence in North London. I mean, you got Marine One, you got your own helicopter. How good would it be to be able to get a helicopter home at night? No traffic, no waiting for your Uber, no one having to be the designated driver.
But look, it's Windsor Castle. And if you had the chance to stay overnight in one of those rooms, you absolutely would, wouldn't you?
I bet they're freezing cold. I'm not joking. I stayed overnight in a castle once. No, I was genuinely.
Here we go.
Absolutely sodding freezing. Absolutely freezing.
You put your cashmere socks on.
I'm just saying I'm a big fan of central heating. I'm just throwing that out there, folks. But anyway,
I'm sure they'll put blankets.
Melania, I hope you brought your water bottle, love. That's all I can say. Anyway, do get in touch after hear your thoughts on this. It is interesting because it's a procession through the Windsor grounds, which are huge, aren't they?
Massive.
But of course, no members of the public able to stand there, just passing through the guards, and it's just it's a very, very, very different experience, isn't it? Than perhaps many world leaders would get. But the red carpet is very well and truly being rolled out. Let's go to your calls on this state visit. Andrew is in Hertfordshire and wants to have his say. Good afternoon to you, Andrew.
Good afternoon. Glad to see you fitting well. You seem on good form.
Why did you? Were there rumours of my demise?
Yes. Mike Graham was spreading rumours.
I almost dropped my tea then. What? I'm going to have worse.
Yeah. This trip is really important because if you go to the Blues and Royals or the King's Troop and you look at their swords, on there is written Wilkinson's sword. We have history. The Americans don't. Trump needs this.
Yeah.
Starmer gave it to him, but now the gloves are off. Once he's had the trip, he can then position things with Starmer he couldn't. Now, if you look at the AI, your husband works in AI in IT, and I'm not stalking you, but I know that
it's getting a bit stalky, Andrew. To be fair,
yeah, AI needs two things to make it work: water and electricity.
Yeah.
The only way they could invest those numbers is if we give them cheap electricity and access to water for cooling. So the deal won't be about the intellectual property stuff and all that stuff, which is being pushed through.
We'll be subsidising their utilities.
Got it. So we will be subsidising it. So if you look at Khan is divisive in London, and he's racist in the way that he approaches it. It's all coming together now, and Trump can come away from this visit.
Yep.
He's done. He's got what he needs. And he can now go on the offensive against free speech in this country, the price of oil, and immigration.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing about the trip being relatively early. You roll it all out, and the royal family play their role. That's what we got them for, to do their stuff, representing the country. But here's the thing: what did you say? Once he's done it, should we not have held it out as, "Oh, this will happen"? But, be nice to us, or is it a quid pro quo? We've done this, and in return we get that. But we've got nothing left to offer. We're not going to do an unprecedented third historic state visit, are we?
No, but if you look at that meeting when he gave you, Starmer just showed up in America and he threw up at Trump's feet. He has got nothing. No component part of the Labour Party loves him because he stands for nothing within that. We are listless. and we actually are run by a clueless individual who has no friends.
I mean, that's true, absolutely. Andrew, great call. Thank you very much indeed. Covered a lot there. I think you're right. You think right about, what is that deal, that £30 billion deal? It simply does not make sense for some of these American tech companies to be wanting to do things like AI in the country with the most expensive, business electricity costs in the world. That said, the regulatory regime in most of Europe is even worse. They want to be outside the EU. We were told we wouldn't get any business investment because we were outside the EU. On the contrary, but it may be that, look, we still want to do stuff in Europe and you're our best bet.
Yeah, and we're close enough.
Despite Rachel Reeves' best efforts.
But then if we are, if Andrew was suggesting that we're going to be subsidising the utility bills for these companies, where is that money coming from? Because Rachel Reeves keeps telling us there's an enormous black hole that we're in.
Who knows? I bet you anything they won't have to pay. That means they're not paying various of the other large components, which are, of course, tax components. I wonder if that is the case. Yeah. Does that touch the size of the issue? Let's go to Matthew. He's on the line in Cheshire. Matthew, what do you want to say about the state visit?
Hello, Julia.
Hello, my love.
Lucky enough, in the 80s and 90s, I served in the Prince of Wales's company, 1st Battalion Welsh Guards.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to do plenty of my state Guard of Honours for presidents and kings and princes. And people moan about how much the taxpayer pays for these days. Yeah. But it pays itself back tenfold. I did a Guard of Honour for Lech Wałęsa, the Polish president, the ship dock worker and when he came into the quadrangle with all that pomp and pageantry, I can remember looking over and seeing his face, and he was completely blown away by what we as proud British can give. We've got a 1,000-year history in Windsor. And you cannot buy that. It's not about the Prime Minister. It's about the King and the Queen, or the Queen at that time. You come here. You could be Japanese, you could be American, you could be German, you could be Argentinian. Yeah. They have not got it, and they just love it because nowhere else in the world has got that. And the deals and the connections that makes for the economy and business-wise, you just can't do it. The royal family pay for themselves 10 times over.
This is their job. This is what they do, and this is what they do best. And did you and your fellow guards, did you feel privileged to do this? I mean, presumably, again, it's not like you're all employed for the day. You're going to be working anyway. You do you rehearse this stuff anyway, don't you? Did you feel an honour to do this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've been fortunate afterwards to take my family to the Windsor Castle to meet the royal family through the regiment and that. And you're honoured, and when you, in later life, when you reflect back on it, you realise, I lived on a council estate in Warrington, and I didn't even leave school with an O-level, never mind a spirit level.
Yeah.
So for me to come from there, I went all over the world. I served the Queen. I met the royal family. I was at Windsor. I was at Buckingham Palace. I did all these, I did the troop in the colour and was the escort to colour, and it just made me the person I am today. And I'm very proud, very, very proud, and lucky and fortunate enough to meet some great comrades, to do some wonderful things, experiences that you just never get in life.
I can't imagine. Yeah, well, we're very proud to have you on the show. Thank you so much for calling in, Matthew. We appreciate that. Claire Pearsall comes from a military family. You were going to get tearful. You're nodding away.
I was. I think it's
lovely to hear that. It's lovely to hear that. 12:34 is the time. I'm going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about our financial woes, as the Office of Budget Responsibility has warned that they've been a bit too optimistic about some of their predictions. So things are even worse than we thought they were. I know. Imagine that. Just to let you know, the carriage procession it looks like almost over. It's carriage procession through the Windsor grounds is arriving back at outside Windsor Castle to the quadrangle, where there will be a ceremonial welcome with a guard of honour in the quadrangle. Cat's coming up in just a few moments. We'll bring you all the footage of that. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. 12:37 is the time. Just to let you know that procession, the state procession, the carriages, the royal carriages at Windsor Castle has now completed. King and Donald Trump in the first carriage, Queen and Melania in the second one, Kate and Wills, Kate and Wills, a bit casual about that, Prince and Princess of Wales in the third one. In fact, Marco Rubio, the US Secretary of State, and Steve Witkoff, the President's envoy and golf buddy, in the fourth carriage. But they've now left their carriages. They are now in a marquee watching the formal state the formal guard of honour ceremony welcome. Involves a total of, and this is unprecedented in numbers because again they know that Donald Trump loves this stuff, as the carriages move away in the quadrangle at Windsor Castle. 120 horses, 1,300 members of the British military involved in that. It was 160 personnel from the Royal Marines and Royal Navy, 1,000 from the British Army and 140 from the Royal Air Force, and incredibly impressive it looks too. And luckily for them, the rain has not reached Windsor this morning. They're doing well on that front. But this has all been, unprecedentedly big scale in terms of the red carpet and the ceremony, the pomp and the circumstance that the American president is getting. In terms of things that are unprecedented, how bad is our economy right now? Let's talk to Michael Simmons. He's economics editor at The Spectator and joins us. Good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
I'm sure you, like me, probably didn't get your invite. The host is terrible at the moment to the state banquet tonight. I don't know anyone could even afford a state banquet with the price of food. Inflation up 3.8%. Food inflation up 5%, we learnt today. But now we've got some rather bad news from the Office for Budget Responsibility. But it's not just bad news for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, remember her. It's bad news for all of us. What is it?
Yeah, well, I think this is actually quite disastrous news for the Chancellor. I don't know if listeners will remember when the Chancellor announced the date for her November budget. She did this interview where there'd been this story about a 50 billion black hole, and she said, "Oh, that forecast's a bit ridiculous. That's not going to come to pass." Well, part of that is because the Office for Budget Responsibility, who effectively do the maths and decide how big this gap that she has to fill is, for years have been overestimating productivity growth and saying we have productivity growth when we have none of it. And if you assume that they had kept doing that, then the hole that she had to fill might not have actually been that big, which is why she was confident. And what's happened yesterday is some kind people at the OBR have leaked to the Financial Times to say that this is going to be when we do correct our forecasts and we bring that assumption down. And that's going to make such a big difference that her hole goes, bit above potentially.
Right. And the productivity is something that we certainly know in the public sector, which is basically flatlined for 20-25 years. Yeah. It has gone up in private sector, but not to the same extent it's gone up in other countries where, certainly Europe. Weirdly, France is claimed to be a more productive country than ours. I've never quite got how that happens. If you've ever been to France and tried to buy anything during lunchtime hours, but there we are. But it's certainly countries like America where use of technology and investment and AI now, we'll come on to that, has led to massive productivity growth in terms of what you can do and what you can achieve with it, what you can actually produce with it. We're just not on the same sort of trajectory, are we?
Yeah, we're not. And it's for a couple of reasons. We seem to have this skills gap where, new entrepreneurs start companies, larger companies expand their plans, want to get involved with infrastructure projects, then they look to hire people and the skills are just not there. Yeah. Because for whatever reason, people are not coming through our schools and university with some of the technical skills, the more scientific stuff that we actually need. So it's
they're all doing media studies and psychology at university instead of learning to do useful stuff that could get them a job.
Yes, exactly. And the result is that, it's all well and good companies saying we're going to expand, we're going to take on people. But if you do that and they're not actually making your business more productive, then we don't get any growth. The other factor is obviously over the last few years, we've decided as a country that we want to get more into work-life balance and work from home and be flexible. And, might I suggest that is not exactly conducive to productivity?
And again, when you compare compare us with other countries, and again, I know an awful lot of European countries do that, but again, we are the work from home capital, that's for sure. I guess there are plenty of people who've got jobs where they can productively. I write a column for The Sun. I write on a Thursday afternoon and I write it from home, in the quiet, and I haven't got a desk here when I'm not on air, basically. There's reasons, but a lot of people working from home, most of the week or all of the week, we can see a lot of those jobs. The productivity is absolutely flatlined and even gone down. I mean, it's just clearly not working. But many other countries around the world, they're not doing any of that. And you are seeing, certainly the Far East and the Southeast Asian economies, they are booming, and their work ethic, their expectation of what you should achieve every day and that you should do what your boss tells you to do and be where your boss tells you to do, completely different.
Yeah, and I think another uniquely British problem is we do seem to have this ambition gap as well, where part of the reason why people become more productive is because they want to climb the career ladder.
Yeah.
But because the British economy has become so difficult to get on in, i.e. in terms of to increase your wages, to get to a position where you have any chance of buying your first home, I think a lot of younger people are getting to a sort of reasonable early level on the career ladder where they can have enough money to rent an okay flat, to go on a couple of holidays a year, and saying, that's enough for me now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put in the work to get to that sort of senior managerial level.
But also, having to work harder, but also knowing that with our tax rate, so much of the money you earn, you're not going to see because it's going to go into the Rachel Reeves Treasury coffers.
Yes, and this is going to get even worse now. I was at a briefing by a London bank this morning, and they said because of this productivity adjustment, things are going to be so bad now in terms of the taxes she has to find, given that she's not going to cut the size of the state, that she actually will have to break her manifesto pledge and put taxes up on the entire workforce.
Because that's the thing. There aren't that many. Everyone, tax the wealthy, tax the banks. There just isn't enough money. Those people will leave, or there just aren't enough of them. The only way to fill these sort of black holes is to put extra taxes on everyone.
Yeah, these are levers that she can only really pull once, and the ones that are left to her are those three big ones. Now, I'm not sure I would go as far as...
That's income tax, national insurance, VAT.
And VAT, exactly. And those, in fairness, would raise the tens of billions of pounds. Now, even if she doesn't do it this time and is forced to do it next year, again, you're only really going to do that once. And I keep coming back to this thought that I've said to you before, Julia, that eventually someone is going to have to confront the size of the state and actually cut public spending, because we can't just keep taxing our way out of these... We
are living way beyond our means, and there's a fact that the majority of the money that we made, 110 billion a year going out and paying the interest on our national debt, but the majority of that money is paying the interest on debt to cover the debt. I mean, we are actually in, properly sort of, loan shark territory in terms of what's going on in our economy and what we're spending. It's absolutely absurd. Just finally, I must ask, everyone says AI is the answer, productivity, and we've got this announcement of £30 billion today of deals with US tech giants like Alphabet and like Microsoft. But a lot of people are asking, particularly a lot of it involves AI, why would these companies wanting to come and set up businesses, a lot of them in the south of the country, where you've got energy prices are 4 times those of energy prices that companies face in America? What have we offered in return?
Well, I'm sure that it will soon come out that the government has offered some sort of, regulatory concession. But I think the wider economic factor is actually this point we started with about the poor state of Britain's economy. It means that British service workers are very cheap to employ relative to America. So a bit like, in the last 20 years, every British company outsourced their call center to India. We are now a sort of more skilled version of that for America. And I don't think that's something we should be embarrassed about. It's something we should lean into. We need all the sort of opportunities we should get, and we should make the most of that. Really good to talk to you. Economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Thank you for that. Claire Pearson. I mean, look, this is dire stuff. The economy's flatlined, even when the Tories were in charge for a long time. It's definitely going downhill now with the tax on jobs from the national insurance rise. Rachel Reeves got her second budget in November. The news she's going to get in advance from the OBR is going to be dire.
It's not. It's her second budget. It's not going to be. I mean, she's not going to get another one. This is her final budget. There's no way in the world. But she will not cut. I mean, they made it clear they wouldn't even cut $5 billion from welfare. They won't cut the spending in any meaningful way. There are going to be big pay rises for public sector workers. We can't afford more spending on everything. We can't afford it. Tax rises is the only way you're going to fill that. I mean, the public don't get that we spend way beyond our means.
We do, and if this was your own personal finance and you were doing that, then you would be out on your ear in a cardboard box because you wouldn't have the funds to pay for it. Whereas, sadly, with governments, they just tend to go and borrow more. But as you said, the cost of borrowing now, we are just repaying the interest on that. We're not even cutting down the debt of the country. But where can she get the money from? Because whatever she suggests, the majority of her own backbenchers absolutely hate the idea and will vote against it.
Because they're living in Never Never Land.
Of course they are.
They really are. I mean,
they don't get it.
When everything, the proverbial does hit the fan, it's going to be so much worse.
Yeah, and I don't think people realise quite how much worse this is going to get. I mean, we are a broke country.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Happy Wednesday. But still got lots of gold on the coaches and things. We've got this beautiful procession.
Horses.
We still look like a first world country. President Trump and Melania with the... you know what this procession passed of the whole... Oh, God, who are they?
Well, so we have
ceremonial welcome, the British.
Yeah,
I should know this, but I'm not a royal editor.
So you've got the household cavalry coming through, and you've got the guards. It's quite interesting, the sort of the different guards that you have doing the guards of honour, and you've actually got 3 all in one go.
Well, there you are. Then it's looking very nice indeed. 12:48 is the time. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
It's quite clear that what is normally a diplomatic appointment, and the predecessor seemingly was doing a good job, he essentially wanted Mandelson in there, and I think that they basically, a bit of a nudge and a wink, don't look too deeply, quick cursory glance, it's Mandelson, we know he's already resigned a couple of times, so everything's out there, don't worry, push on.
Yeah.
And then I think a whole bunch of sort of paperwork and gaps were sort of filled in later on.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. 12:52 is the time. If you are watching on YouTube, no doubt we'll be putting up footage. We've got, of course, the US President and First Lady, and they've been with the King and the Queen, and of course the Prince and Princess of Wales. They have had a royal carriage procession. They've also had a full ceremonial welcome, and quite something it has been to see as well at Windsor Castle at the current moment. Of course, that big state banquet tonight, and of course, plenty to talk about there. Lots of your calls and lots of your messages coming in, but let's turn our attention to one other issue, something that actually may well be raised by Donald Trump, either publicly or privately, and that's the issue of free speech in this country. It's been a big issue. Lucy Connolly, other people, and so Graham Linehan's arrest have been raised by the President and J.D. Vance, his VP. But Nick Smart, who's the chairman of the Police Superintendents Association, is the latest senior police officer to complain about, well, the lack of clarity from the government in the wake of free speech rows, saying officers are being set up to fail and they need clear guidance on whether they should arrest people for social media posts. Well, let's talk about this with police crime and justice commentator Danny Shaw. He's a former advisor to Vet Cooper before she was Home Secretary. A very good morning to you. Sorry, good afternoon to you, Danny.
Hello, good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. It is interesting. Do you think officers are being set up to fail?
I think it's difficult for officers. I think they're caught in the middle, and I have a lot of sympathy for them. But I also think there's a lack of common sense among some officers. I'm very sad to say. I mean, the arrest at Heathrow Airport of Graham Linehan, the comedian, 5 armed officers went to arrest him for some tweets that he sent months ago. You know, I'm sorry, you do not need to be an expert to tell you that was completely over the top and disproportionate.
Well, not just over the top. I mean, there shouldn't have been any arrest. I mean, he was in the country. They knew he was going to appear at court. But he came back to appear at court in a case. This is the thing. The police officers say, look, rank and file police officers, and I do sort of feel sorry for some of them and say, oh, what can we do, Gov? But they're being told by whether it's the sergeant or a more senior officer what to do. And we know there's been an issue, the College of Policing, in terms of rising up the ranks, that basically if you don't sign up to all the woke stuff, you don't get ahead. This is what they're being taught. And as soon as something is about trans, or it might be considered something about Muslims, something like immediately, we need to do something about it. This is hate speech. But the reality is, hate speech isn't illegal in this country. You're allowed to hate people in this country. What you're not allowed to do is incite violence against them or abuse people. These are very different things.
They are. And, you know, to be fair, sometimes the line between them is not clear and it's a grey area. And so you're going to get cases where police officers might have to make an arrest and do an investigation. And it turns out no crime's been committed. So I think you do have to have an understanding of that, and the guidelines could be simpler. But I think the main problem, Julia, is that I don't think police officers feel that they can make a decision without, if they get it wrong, their superiors coming down on them like a ton of bricks in an investigation by the IOPC. They need to have more discretion. The leadership in the police service needs to give officers on the ground the trust and confidence to say, look, make a decision. If you get it a bit wrong, I'm not going to come down you like a ton of bricks. There might be some learning for next time, but use your discretion, use your common sense. Look, a police officer knows, you know, if you call up and say my house has been burgled, you might want officers there to take fingerprints and so on. You might say, well, it happened 2 weeks ago when I'm on holiday. I've got no footage at all. I completely understand if you don't turn up because there's no point doing an investigation. And in that case, officers will have the discretion and the common sense to be able to make their decisions. It feels like on social media, they don't have the confidence to be able to
Well, you said that. I don't want officers to have that much discretion, because I think what we've seen in recent years is actually they're not exercising discretion in the right direction. And what they need to do is the law needs to be clear. They need to know the law. No one should be arrested for anything that's a non-crime hate incident, because by definition, not a crime, none of their sodding well business. But also, crucially, they need to understand that what is the difference between legal speech and illegal speech. And if it's not against the law, they don't have the right to get involved at all, let alone arrest people. I don't want them to have discretion. I want our elected representatives to be clear about what the law is, and then for them to be told what the law is and enforce the law only.
Well, you will always need some discretion. This is where we disagree.
Well, why do they have discretion about turning up
officers-
to a shoplifting event, which they seem to have discretion over, but they're finding it so difficult to decide whether to turn up when someone's written a hurty tweet?
Yeah, but there's, officers exercise discretion all the time on the street. When they're dealing with public order situations, of course, they're having to make judgments all the time. Do you go into the crowd and pull that person out, or do you wait and leave it till things have calmed down and you can arrest them in slow time? Officers use their judgment and discretion all the time. I think with the social media is a relatively new form for them, and they don't have the understanding yet of when they can.
They certainly don't seem to have that, do they? Thank you, Dennis Shaw. So appreciate you joining us. Thank you. Claire Pearsall, you're still here, obviously, as a former Home, working at the Home Office, a former Conservative government advisor. I mean, I think a lot of police officers have shown that actually they're not using their discretion very wisely, whether they're on the beat or whether they are more senior officers. We need to be clear. What is the law? What can't you say? End of. I mean, the First Amendment in America is very clear.
Well, this is it. I don't want the police to be able to use discretion, whatever that means, because
He's
it's going
got
to be
his
different
rainbow
things.
laces on. He might have a different view of his discretion.
Exactly. I want the Rozzers to be proper Rozzers, out there getting criminals, getting bad people, and keeping order on our
Have you
streets.
threatened to
It's
kill
quite
someone or to
simple.
rape someone? Because there's an awful lot of people who threaten to violence against Nigel Farage or against J.K. Rowling, who no one seems to be bothered about. They're using their discretion then, are they?
Yeah, but you can't use your discretion like that. The law is the law, and the police are there to uphold it.
It needs to be, and it needs to be clear. And if you've got time to go to non-crime hate incidents, then why are you not attending every burglary, every assault, everyone? Yeah, don't go dancing. Save your rainbow laces and face paint. I think we'll all agree on that. Indeed, there'll be plenty of police today around Windsor Castle. Well, they're not. Ian Collins is here and is about to tell us
listen, just here's an example. Collins, you piece of, I can't even read the word. If I met you, I would grab you by the throat until you could hardly breathe.
But,
I mean, look, whatever they say about Sheila Fogarty, she can send some...
I was going to say, I assumed it was from The Wire.